Chapter 11:15. Even though in the long years, he had caused her irreparable harm, but Empress Xianda's heart still could not leave him. Was life fated to have such a fate? This fate did not come perfectly, it could even be called a predestined fate. When this predestined fate was about to end, she stubbornly refused to let go. Like a moth flying into a flame, until the last moment, she would never let go. Qingzhen, I cannot accompany you anymore. Emperor Yongle said apologetically, when you married me, I thought you would be protected. In reality, after so many years, you have not received anything. He spoke very slowly. After every sentence, he had to rest for a while. It seemed to be very tiring. Empress Xianda said, don't say any more. The two of them, ever since they became empresses, one called himself Zhen, and the other Qinxia. Only when their lives were about to reach the end, when they would not be able to meet again, did they use you and I to address each other as if they were a normal couple. He said, go live your own life. You are so good, you will definitely be happy in the future. Marry someone else, don't choose a selfish husband like me. Find someone who loves you. Empress Xianda sobbed. She suddenly felt her hand being grabbed. She saw Emperor Yongli's bright eyes staring at her. He gritted his teeth and said, but I am not willing. I do not want. I am very selfish. You are my woman, I do not want you to marry someone else. Empress Xianda stilled. This year, I have worked hard to live, hoping to live a few more days. Actually, it is not because I want to see Xia Yuan rule the world. The dust has settled, there is nothing I cannot let go of, I am just reluctant. He struggled to breathe, I am reluctant to part with you. Even if I have to be husband and wife with you for half a day, one more moment is good. When I first saw you and you were summoned to the palace, it was not Mother's idea. It was me from the start. I told Mother that I thought you were good. After so many years, you thought I was satisfied with Empress Xianda. Actually, it was not. I said anyone could be the Empress as long as they could do it well. Actually, it was not like that. It was you from the start. Those words were all lies. Empress Xianda covered her mouth and said, why didn't you say so earlier? Emperor Yongli's face turned even paler. His voice was so low that it was almost inaudible. He said, it is a pity that my fate is not good and I have implicated you for life. He reached out as if wanting to help Empress Xianda wipe away the tears on her face. But halfway through the action, his hand drooped down powerlessly. His eyes closed. Empress Xianda covered her mouth, burying herself in the bedding and crying bitterly. She cried her heart out, but no one outside could hear her. She buried her voice in the thick bedding, wishing that she could bury herself in it as well. From now on, she would not hear, see, blame, or think. The incense in the copper stove rose in spirals and dispersed in the air. There were only suppressed sobs in the room. The moon outside the window was bright and gentle, so full that it didn't seem real. A moment later, Empress Xianda stood up. She gently tucked the blanket over Emperor Yongle and kissed his lips. She tidied her hair in front of the mirror, wiped away her tears, and slowly opened the door. A room full of eunuchs and palace maids were kneeling outside. Eunuch Deng bowed and came forward. Empress Xianda said calmly, His Majesty has passed away. Eunuch Deng was startled and then knelt down solemnly. He placed the horsetail whisk in front of him and kowtowed a few times. When the eunuchs and palace maids outside saw this, they also knelt down and kowtowed. Their voices were sorrowful and resounded in the 9 palaces. Chapter 11:16. His Majesty has passed away. Shen Miao looked towards Empress Xianda. Empress Xianda was wearing a plain white silk dress and her expression was still gentle and calm, as if nothing could shake the calmness in her heart. After a short period of chaos in the court, it finally calmed down. Before Emperor Yongle died, he had arranged everything, including the edict of succession and the possible turmoil in the court. Even though there were people who were ready to move, the troops that Emperor Yongle arranged were not just for show. Moreover, Xie Jingxing had sent news of victory, and everyone knew that Emperor Yongle had no sons and the throne was passed down to his only blood-related brother. This was a fact that had long been decided. It was not that there were no doubts, but the doubts would eventually fade away. Xie Jingxing's performance of bravery and Emperor Yongle's thorough arrangements made the court impregnable, and at this time, there was no chaos. Perhaps they knew that once Prince Rui returned, he would not only bring back victory but also the territories of Ming-Chi and Qin. This chaotic world would be completely unified and the throne would not be that important. It was better to be well-behaved and wait for the new emperor to return in triumph and ascend the throne, then they would be able to get a share of the credit. There were only benefits in the previous court, but what about the inner palace? The females in the inner palace lost the monarch that they relied on to survive and naturally were at a loss. Some were seeking death, but most of them were planning for the rest of their lives. Among the concubines in Emperor Yongle's inner palace, most of them were the daughters of the court officials, and there were almost none that he took the initiative to bring in. Moreover, Emperor Yongle was born cold, and other than doting on Lu Jing, he did not have any lust for females. Thus there was no lingering love between him and those concubines. After Emperor Yongle passed away, these women took the initiative to ask their families for help, hoping to find a better way out for the rest of their lives. Empress Xianda calmly handled everything and held a national funeral before entering the imperial tomb. There was no request for anyone to be buried with him, and Emperor Yongle had instructed Deng Gonggang about his funeral matters, and everything was done according to his wishes. Shen Miao came to visit Empress Xianda at night. Ever since Emperor Yongle entered the imperial tomb, she was exceptionally calm. Today was the Mid-Autumn Festival and the full moon was in the sky, but she was in the Weiyang Palace listening to the servant playing the zither. Shen Miao let the palace maid who was playing the zither leave. Empress Xianda then saw her and seemed to be extremely tired. She smiled again and said, "You have come. The weather is getting cold and your ladyship needs to wear more clothes. If one wants to listen to the zither, then heat up the small stove to prevent one from catching a cold," Shen Miao said. Empress Xianda smiled disapprovingly. She pointed at the mooncakes on the table and said, "The imperial kitchen made them. Ben Gong had wanted to have someone deliver them to you, but then I thought that they had already been delivered, so I didn't bother." Shen Miao smiled, "Your ladyship should also eat some." Empress Xianda waved her hand. "I have no appetite." The edict for the succession of the throne had been passed down, and when Xie Jingxing returned to Longyi, he would ascend the throne, and at that time Shen Miao would be the empress. Speaking of which, it was not appropriate to address Empress Xianda like this. However, the two of them didn't care. These days, this consort has been thinking about the past. Originally, I thought that your majesty had passed away. This was a fact that this consort had known for a long time and that this consort would slowly get used to it. But as time passed, he felt more and more uncomfortable. Every day one would feel that one's heart was empty, as if something was missing. "Qin Wangfei, after Jingxing left, are you also like this?" Shen Miao was surprised for a moment. Was it longing? Naturally there was. Normally one would feel that it was nothing special to be in front of one's eyes every day, but when one really separated, one would then be shocked to realize what one had lost. When one separated, one would be able to understand many of one's feelings. But Shen Miao subconsciously touched her lower abdomen. Most likely it was because there was a little fellow in her abdomen that these long and torturous days were not so boring. Chapter 11-17. Most likely you and Ben Gong are different. Empress Xianda did not wait for Shen Miao to reply and continued, "In the past His Majesty did not know who you are and inquired about your matters. Ben Gong listened and knew that you are a person with ideas. You dealt with the imperial family of Ming-Chi and protect the Shen family. From the beginning, you most likely had your own ideas. As for meeting Jingxing and marrying him, it was all coincidental and let nature take its course. If you did not meet Jing Xing, you can also live your own life because your initial goal was not to become someone's wife. But Ben Gong is different. She looked at the ruby on her long armor and said, Ben Gong's family is rich and stable, and there is no spearhead in the disputes with the court and was born without worries. When Ben Gong met the emperor, Ben Gong felt that the most important thing in life was to become his wife and accompany him for a lifetime. She propped her head on her elbow and spoke slowly, as if she was going to fall asleep in the next moment, but she was still talking. Perhaps it was because Ben Gong's first half of life was too worry-free that one did not know that becoming a person's wife was such a difficult matter. Shen Miao did not speak. Empress Xianda was too bitter. These days she did not speak anything, but Shen Miao understood that kind of feeling. This was because talking wouldn't change anything. But sometimes, it was good to be able to say it. Now that Empress Xianda was willing to speak it out, at least it was better than keeping it in her heart. After the emperor left, Ben Gong did not know what to do. The females in the inner palace were also dismissed. This palace was originally noisy and annoying, but now it was deserted, making one feel strangely lonely. Ben Gong thought that it would be better if one did not meet the emperor in the beginning. One would rather be like you, to fight against the imperial family and protect the Shin family carefully. It would be better than this destined sad ending. Her words were too sad and too desperate. Shen Miao comforted her, this official's wife is also the same. In fact, no one's entire life is always peaceful and smooth. Ever since this official's wife was born, other than the concern of parents and older brothers, there was not a moment when the heavens bestowed a good life. This official's wife never dared to hope for these, so one can only believe in oneself for everything. Meeting your highness is this official's wife's good fortune, but if not for your highness, this official's wife's path would have been even more difficult. Pausing, she continued, it is the same for the empress. Even if the emperor leaves first, the empress should think of herself and live for herself. No matter how hard the road is, keep walking. This is what the emperor wants to see. Empress Xianda was silent for a long time, so long that Shen Miao thought that she did not hear her words at all before she heard her say, Qin Wang Fei, thank you. I understand what you're saying. It's just that this is too difficult, too difficult. That night, Shen Miao and Empress Xianda sat for a long time. They didn't say much, but it felt like they had said a lot. After Shen Miao left, Empress Xianda sat alone in the palace for a long time. Empress Xianda didn't get up until Tao Gugu came to urge her to go to bed and rest. Aunt Tao didn't leave until she saw her freshen up and go to bed. After closing the door, the person on the bed sat up again. She lit the lamp and rummaged through the cabinets to find clothes. It was not the Empress court robes, but a moon-white plain dress. She loved such simple and refreshing colors, but after becoming the Empress, she could no longer wear such styles. If it was not exquisite and grand, she would not be able to suppress the other concubines. She looked calm and composed, but in fact she was an introverted young lady who did not like to speak. She wore a simple dress and sat in front of the mirror. Lightly brushing her eyebrows and lightly applying rouge, she looked extremely pretty. Chapter 11:18. She took out a pen and paper from the drawer and started to write a letter. Forget it, she put the letter into an envelope. Finally, Empress Xianda took out an exquisite jade box from the bottom of the cabinet. That box was covered with a faint layer of dust. From the moment she married Emperor Yonglu, she knew of his illness. To marry a man who did not know when he would die, it required a lot of courage. But she was the bravest young lady in the imperial censor's residence and most yearned to be a hero. Emperor Yonglu was not considered a hero as he played politics and won over the hearts of the people and was not upright. But Empress Xianda still felt that he was still her hero. In the beginning, and in the end. There was a slender bottle in that jade box. She took it out and held it in her palm. On the day she married Emperor Yonglu, Empress Xianda prepared this bottle for herself. She looked at herself in the mirror and said, Qing Zhen, the people of Jianghu are heroic, righteous, and daring to love and hate. Even though you are in an official's family, you yearn for Jianghu. If there is a day that he unfortunately leaves, you must follow in the Yellow Springs. This is your decision. For so many years, every year, Empress Xianda would take out that bottle to take a look and was glad that the bottle was not used. Every year, she stole it from the heavens and it was an exceptionally happy time. Now, it was finally the time to take it out. She was very timid, so timid that after Xiaqi left, she did not have the courage to live the remaining days. She was also very bold, so bold that she knew from the beginning that she would have such an ending but still resolutely went forward. Xingji, I am here to see you. She said softly and drank the contents of the bottle in one gulp. The moon gradually rose from the clouds and hung high above the willow tree branches, as if it was smiling at the joys and sorrows of the world. It was so perfect that one wanted to cry. Shen Miao's rest that night was very uncomfortable. Her dreams were always exceptionally noisy and she wanted to hear clearly what was going on but she could not understand. Only when Jing Zhe woke her up, Shen Miao looked at the bright sky outside and got up. When she touched her forehead, it was cold sweat and a trace of uneasiness flashed across her heart. Luo Tan ran in from outside. Her eyes were red as she looked at Shen Miao and said softly, "The Empress has passed away." Shen Miao took the handkerchief from Jing Zhe's hands and it fell to the ground with a pa sound. In less than a month, Emperor Yonglu and Empress Xianda passed away. The world mourned. When Emperor Yonglu passed away, Empress Xianda sacrificed herself for him. Those imperial concubines who used to fight with each other in the palace also rushed over when they heard the news. When Empress Xianda was the empress, she was kind and generous. In addition, Emperor Yonglu wasn't close to her, so these favored concubines didn't have any thoughts about Empress Xianda. There were even people who sighed when they learned of this. Empress Xianda's father appeared very calm from beginning to end. Perhaps he had already predicted that Empress Xianda would make this decision. Although he was sad, he did not find it unacceptable. Shen Miao followed the etiquette of the empress' grave and brought Empress Xianda and Emperor Yonglu together into the emperor's tomb. At this point, this group of wise rulers and virtuous empresses could only forever remain in the history books of the Great Liang. What followed was a lot of things. Emperor Yonglu had passed away and there was still Empress Xianda. Empress Xianda had passed away, so who would be in charge of the court? Even though Emperor Yonglu had left the Edict of Succession, but Xie Jingxing had not ascended the throne yet. Speaking of which, it was not possible to call Shen Miao as the empress. But Emperor Yonglu did not have any other siblings and the only blood relation was Xie Jingxing. Chapter 11:19. No imperial court was completely stable, especially when there was no leader. The court that had started to calm down started to stir again. There were always some restless officials who would try to do something. They had ambition but no guts, but they were not willing to let go of this opportunity. Shen Miao asked Deng Gonggang, "Is the previous court quarreling very badly now?" Deng Gonggang said, "Exactly. Currently the previous court wants to elect a person to temporarily supervise the court and wait for His Highness Prince of First Rank to return to Longyi before making further plans." Presumptuous. Shen Miao's lips twitched, "Really want to steal the country?" Deng Gonggang kept quiet. He did not know why, but he always felt that this young Prince Rui's consort had an indescribable temperament. This temperament was very similar to the original Empress Xianda, but it was even sharper than Empress Xianda. Usually she looked gentle and easy to talk to and would not delve deeply into anything, but once her face turned cold, it would make others feel intimidated. It was very similar to Prince Rui, Xia Yuan's feeling. But before Emperor Yonglu left, he had instructed Deng Gonggang to wait for Xie Jingxing to return and assist him. Deng Gonggang had lived in the palace of Longyi since young and could help with many things. Now that Xie Jingxing had not returned, Deng Gonggang naturally could not be careless with Shen Miao's instructions. "Deng Gonggang, tidy up. I will go to the previous court," she said. Deng Gonggong was surprised for a moment. Furan, the court is in chaos, and at this critical juncture, if bad news were to spread, it would be inevitable that the people of Longyi would panic and chaos would cause trouble. It is better for me to be the bad guy first, and it does not matter what others think. One must first pacify the restless hearts of the people. But Deng Gonggong looked at Shen Miao's lower abdomen and said, "You are still pregnant. It is because of this child that the previous court can be kept in check." Shen Miao smiled gently. With the blood of the imperial family, even if they want to do anything, they would have to worry about their reputation. Even though I am a Ming Qi person and they would definitely make an issue out of this, but the child in my stomach has the blood of the imperial family, and no matter what they would not dare to be disrespectful to me. Eunuch Deng thought for a while and said, "This can indeed calm things down temporarily, but in this way, Princess Yu, your pregnancy can't be hidden anymore. I originally hid it because I didn't want your highness to be distracted on the battlefield. Now that the war is nearing its end, the dust has settled, and victory is right in front of us, there is no need to hide anything." She looked at Eunuch Deng, who was still frowning, and said with a smile, "You are afraid that the palace is not peaceful and someone wants to harm me." Eunuch Deng hurriedly folded his sleeves and said, "I will definitely protect the safety of Princess Consort and the little heir." Shen Miao nodded her head, "Thanks for the trouble." After Deng Gonggong withdrew, Shen Miao then gave a sigh of relief and sat on the chair, looking at the fallen leaves outside the window. Empress Xianda had left in too much of a hurry, and many of the problems she left behind became apparent. The palace that was so big and lively in the spring was now deserted. It actually gave off a feeling of desolation. However, she knew that the matter was far from over. Before Xie Jingxing returned, it was what she had to do to settle down the somewhat chaotic court. "Ever since you were born into my stomach, there was really not a good time," Shen Miao said softly to her stomach, "but everything will be better." 5 days later, the imperial edict of the previous court was made public and the entire court was in an uproar. Those who had doubts were verified by the ministers. Before Emperor Yongle passed away, he had arranged everything properly. All the officials were speechless. Some busybodies said that there was no leader among the officials and requested for a few officials to be elected as regent. But it was rejected and Shen Miao, the Princess Rui, handled the court matters. Chapter 1120. In a short period of time, memorials were spread everywhere and rumors flew everywhere. Everyone said that Shen Miao was a Ming Qi's person and was clearly a spy sent by Ming Qi. Now that there was no one in court, she wanted to usurp power with wild ambitions. This rumor spread very quickly and also subsided very quickly because Shen Miao appeared in the court with a big belly. And Deng Gonggong, Tao Gugu, and the rest also proved that Empress Xianda brought Shen Miao into the palace because she wanted to protect this only imperial bloodline. With this child, there would be nothing to do in name. In addition, on the day that Shen Miao came out, her methods were thunderous and the checks and balances were subtle, ruthlessly dealing with those troublemakers. She balanced kindness and power, which made others have a feeling that if something were to happen at this time, when Xie Jingxing returns, one fear that there would not be a good result to eat. Half of it was because of the fear of Shen Miao and the other half was because of the fear of Xie Jingxing. This storm quickly subsided. But Shen Miao did not have a leisurely time. She had to do what she said. Since she had taken up the responsibility, she couldn't just say it casually. These days she had been looking at memorials. After Emperor Yongle passed away, many memorials were accumulated and with the addition of Empress Xianda's death, the memorials piled up even higher. She looked through the memorials one by one and sometimes it would be late at night. Jing Zhe and the rest felt sorry for her but could not persuade her no matter what, so they could only accompany her. Luo Tan was dozing off as she asked, "Biao, youngest sister, why do you need to look at it yourself? If you do not trust those people, you can always trust the trusted aides of the late emperor. Is it not good to hand all these memorials to them and let them look at it? Why do it personally? You are still pregnant with a child in your stomach." Shen Miao shook her head. People's hearts are fickle and power cannot be given out randomly. I am not a Longyi person, and in a short period of time, one cannot see through a person's heart. One cannot predict if there will be any changes in the future, so it is better to look at these things yourself. Once something goes wrong, it is not easy to make up for it. Perhaps Emperor Yonglu originally had trusted aides, but after Emperor Yongli's death and Empress Xianda's death, no one could predict if these people would have other thoughts. If this was Ming Qi, Shen Miao would have an understanding of these people and naturally it would not be a problem. But this was Longyi and she had not been in Longyi for a long time, not to mention that in such a short period of time, she was able to completely understand a person's character. In the end, it was because there was no one here that he could trust. Eunuch Deng, who was serving at the side, nodded approvingly. Eunuch Deng inevitably doubted Shen Miao's words. If she just said it casually, wouldn't it be a slap in the face of the royal family in front of so many courtiers? Females would always be more delicate. The things that Empress Xianda could do was because Empress Xianda was the empress, but Shen Miao had never done these things before. Like a man, reading reports till late at night and worrying about the livelihood of the world, to her, it was too much of a stretch. Fortunately, Shen Miao did a good job. Her handling of some matters could even be said to be perfect. Even though Eunuch Deng did not understand the court matters, he was most proficient in observing one's words and body language. Those courtiers initially opposed to and suspected, but recently they had eased up. That meant that Shen Miao did not do too badly, else these people who were nitpicking from the start would not have not found any mistakes until now. Eunuch Deng was somewhat gratified. If Shen Miao was such a person, then she would not be inferior to Emperor Xianda. Perhaps the great Liang's country would really be like what Empress Dowager Jing Xian hoped for, lasting for hundreds of generations and evergreen. This is too hard. Luo Tan said, but yesterday I heard them discussing after court that your luck is quite good and the few decisions you made were very perfect. TSK, Luo Tan disdainfully said, how is it luck? It is clearly true ability. Biao youngest sister, how can you know everything? You can even read these messy reports in the palace, what else do you not know? Chapter 1121. Shen Miao rolled her eyes at her, there are many that do not know. For example. Luo Tan excitedly rushed forward. For example, not like you, curious about everything. Luo Tan was resentful before continuing, anyway. The bitterness is almost over and the sweetness is coming. You are about to give birth and brother-in-law is about to win the war. At that time Gu Fu and my father will come over and our family will be reunited. Think about it, the hardships now are nothing. Shen Miao gently smiled, yes. The hardships now were all worth it. Xie Jingxing's news came in a few days. Ming Qi was destroyed and the Qin country saw that there was no hope of peace, so the Qin emperor fled to the north. Now the great Liang soldiers were rushing towards the Qin country's capital, and after occupying the capital, Xie Jingxing would first return to the great Liang. In a sense, the war had already ended and now they were waiting for the triumphant return of the hero. This was the best news that they had heard since they came in. It is just that. Shen Miao sighed. Xie Jingxing thought that he already knew about the matter of Emperor Yonglu and Empress Xianda. When he returned to the Great Liang and went to the imperial tomb to attend the funeral, one did not know what kind of feeling he would have. The last person in this world who was related to him by blood had left. From now on, he was truly alone. But he was not considered to be alone, as at least there was still Shen Miao and the child. Tao Gugu smiled. It is estimated that the Qin Wang Fei will give birth on the first day of the next month. There are still more than 10 days, so everyone must pay attention in these few days. Luo Tan rubbed her fists, I am really too happy. It is just that one do not know if it is a little niece or nephew. It makes one's heart curious. I guess it is a little niece since she is so obedient and does not make a fuss. That is not necessarily so. Tao Gugu said, the Qin Wang Fei's stomach is sharp and it might be a little air. Shen Miao smiled as she listened to their guesses, but her heart had never felt so secure before. After giving birth to the child and waiting for Xie Jingxing to return, perhaps this year's hardships and chaos would come to an end. In the future, there would finally be good times. However, in this world, there was no such thing as perfection. Even if it was a good ending, there would definitely be 18 twists and turns in the middle. There would be endless difficulties and obstacles, and in the end, there would be some big trouble that would add to the mess. It was as if this was the only way to show the preciousness of a good ending and the difficulty of happiness. As for Shen Miao, when she thought that she would be able to walk unimpeded to a happy ending, she met with such a big trouble. It was an autumn day, the sky was clear, the air was clear, and the wind was gentle. It was a rare good weather. Shen Miao sat at the side of the courtyard and it was rare for her to finish reading the booklet early. One did not know where Luo Tan went to find a kite, but her childlike innocence had not diminished and was happily playing with the female officials in the palace. Shen Miao was infected by her laughter and could not help but reveal a smile. She saw eunuch Deng walk in quickly from the outside with a rare solemn expression. When he saw Shen Miao, he indicated for her to walk into the inner hall. Shen Miao saw that he seemed to have something important to say and was supported by Jing Zhe to the inner hall. As soon as they arrived at the inner hall, eunuch Deng said, "Princess, bad news. The remnants of the Lu family have attacked the city." Remnants of the Lu family? Shen Miao frowned. Everyone from the Lu family. Weren't they all eradicated in Ruyang? Among the remnants of the Lu family, second young lady Lu's husband is a military official and kept a private army. At that time they were not in Longyi but in the outskirts of Longyi, pretending to be ordinary people. These people have dealings with the Yi family. At the beginning when the Yi family was in trouble, Yi Mao had given these people a huge sum of money. Now that these people have horses and carriages ready, they have already planned to attack the city and are currently fighting with the city guards. Eunuch Deng said. Chapter 1122. Shen Miao frowned and after a long while, she said coldly, "A centipede dies but does not fall down." In order to deal with the imperial family, the Lu and Yi families really racked their brains. She looked at Deng Gonggong, "They are coming for me." Eunuch Deng wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "Princess, just the remnant forces of the Lu and Yi families could not contend against Xie Jingxing who was leading a large army. The reason why they chose to attack the city at this time was because they had inherited Yi Maokai and Lu Jingquan's dying wish, which was to fight to the death. Now in the entire palace, there was only Shen Miao who could make decisions and Xie Jingxing's child was in her tummy. Perhaps from their point of view, killing Shen Miao and losing the child would make Xie Jingxing feel so much pain that he would wish he was dead. For Xie Jingxing, this was the best revenge. Was this Yi Maokai and Lu Jingquan's method? He was already dead, yet he still wanted to disgust him at the end. How many soldiers and horses are there in the city and how many guards are there in the palace? Shen Miao asked. The palace guards are enough to protect the princess, but those people have already begun to slaughter the common people outside Longye city. Once they entered the city, they would definitely start a massacre. These people were ferocious by nature and mixed in with the crowd. If they wanted to deal with them, they would have to send out a large number of troops. In this way, there will be a shortage of manpower in the palace, and it will be easy for people to take advantage of the loopholes. Shen Miao frowned, that is to say, the palace or the common people, to choose one of the two. Eunuch Deng was silent. He didn't know how to respond when the words were spoken so straightforwardly. Understood. Shen Miao nodded her head, moved the imperial guards out to protect the common people. Princess. Eunuch Deng was stunned. You can't ignore your own life and death. If you are in danger, how can I explain it to His Highness? It is not that one want me to disregard my own life and death. Shen Miao said, it is just that do you think that those people are only outside the city? He was afraid that someone had already infiltrated the city. What they were doing was nothing more than arousing the fear of the common people. If they still left the imperial guards in charge of the palace at this time, once they said a few words, the common people would be easily incited. If the hearts of the people were unstable, even if the imperial palace was impregnable, it would still fall apart. Especially since His Highness is about to return, we can't afford any trouble. Seeing Deng Gonggong's disapproving expression, Shen Miao said, "Moreover, I will not joke around with my own life. Before His Highness left, he left me some men and horses. They will protect me." Some of the Mou army that were left in the residence of Prince Rui also followed Shen Miao into the palace. She knew in her heart that she didn't have a choice now. Lu Jingchun and Yi Maocai's final move seemed to be deliberately disgusting. If Shen Miao only cared about herself and did not care about the lives and deaths of the commoners, after this matter, even if Xie Jingxing ascended to the throne in the future, he would end up with the reputation of being cold and selfish. When an emperor first ascended the throne, the most important thing was the support of the people. If he lost the hearts of the people, his foundation would not be stable from the start. Even for Xie Jingxing, he could not let the imperial guards only care about the imperial palace. Seeing that she seemed to have made up her mind, eunuch Deng no longer insisted. He went to make arrangements according to her words. Shen Miao, however, was not as indifferent as she looked. She furrowed her brows. If it was in the past, it would have been fine, but it just had to be at this juncture, when she was about to give birth. Perhaps the remaining rebels had taken advantage of this opportunity. No matter what, she must protect the child in her stomach. When Luo Tan got the news and rushed over, she was also worried and persuaded her, "Biao, youngest sister, it is better for you to go and find a place for us to hide and wait till the child is born. Now the palace is not safe and everyone knows that you are in the palace. Naturally the rebels also know about it. Once there are fewer guards in the palace, they will definitely attack." Chapter 1123. Shen Miao shook her head. "If I were to leave, one fear that on the second day, those people would say that I escaped for my life. This imperial palace is like a battlefield. I will retreat first. Once the rebels come, the prestige of the imperial family will not be able to be maintained." But Luo Tan still wanted to say something. "No buts. Persevere for a few more days and Xie Jingxing will be back." Shen Miao said, "It will be fine as long as one can endure through this period of time." As expected by Shen Miao, in less than the second day, rumors started to spread in the streets and alleys that Rui Wangfei had already led her people to escape and did not care about the life and death of the commoners in Longyi. Now that there was no one who could make decisions in the Great Liang Imperial Court, the remnants of the rebels were fighting with the city guards at the city gate of Longyi, and it was uncertain when they would enter the city, and at that time Longyi would definitely be covered with blood like a river. The people were very kind, and kind people were the easiest to be used by others. Whether it was in words or in reality, the only thing they could rely on was the protection of the emperor. However, after hearing this rumor, the person who could make the decision had already escaped. The rest of them were like fish under a knife, waiting to be slaughtered. For a moment, people were scolding the imperial family for being heartless, and Shen Miao's cold words were heard incessantly. She scolded Xie Jingxing for only caring about his own merits and did not care about the lives of the people of Longyi. She scolded Shen Miao for not having any benevolence and actually abandoned the city to escape. Shen Miao sat at the side of the throne room. She was dressed in a purple gold gown that was flowing with light. Her hair was combed into an orthodox palace bun. She was clearly young, yet she was able to suppress this gloominess. She said, "Upper Palace Town." The officials looked at each other in dismay before one of them stepped forward and said, "Qin Wangfei, is this move too risky?" This person initially opposed Shen Miao supervising the court and was the most opposed. However, in recent days, he had become much more well-behaved. Only by taking risks will the people believe that we won't abandon them in times of danger. She stood up and Jing Zhe and Gu Yu quickly supported her. Now that she was pregnant, it was somewhat inconvenient to walk. Although the palace was called a city, it was better to call it a city tower. When Shen Miao led the officials up the stairs, there were some commoners gathered below and the number of commoners increased. Mo Qing led the Mou army and the imperial guards in the palace were all ready to go, to prevent any assassins from sneaking up on them. Among the commoners, there were some who recognized Shen Miao and immediately someone exclaimed, "It's the Qin Wang Fei." In just a short moment, the area below the city gate tower was so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Perhaps more than half of the people of Longyi had come over. Shen Miao looked down and slowly opened her mouth. "Citizens, there have been many rumors recently. The remnants of the Lu family and the rebels of the Yi family are entangled with each other. They even ambushed Longyi to confuse the people." In the wind, her voice was neither loud nor soft. It seemed to have the power to comfort people, but it was also full of determination, making people feel the determination in her tone. "However, don't be gullible. I swear in the name of Rui Qin Wang Fei that if the city exists, I will exist, if the city perishes, I will die. I am with you, and I will fight with you." There was an uproar below the city walls. There were those who were doubtful, but there were also those who believed. "The soldiers of Great Liang are fighting outside. I am in Longyi. I am also a member of Longye's Xie family. As long as the Xie family's glory is not extinguished, I will not escape." There were no cowards in a general's family. They could lose, but they couldn't run. Furthermore, how could a mere remnant rebel disrupt the imperial court's order? What a joke! Her words were powerful and clear, but it was not noisy. Everyone looked up at that female, who was wearing a purple gold robe. She slightly raised her chin, and in a trance, one could see the young Qin Wang who was fighting outside. He was also arrogant, but had the qualifications. "So, do not believe, do not speak, do not fear, do not be timid. I will be in this imperial palace. See who dares to come." The purple cloak fluttered in the wind, and the flag behind her was raised high. Chapter 11:24. The commoners were silent for a moment before cheering together. The cheers shook the heavens, as if it was going to break through the clouds. No one did not like victory. The commoners needed to be appeased and even more so needed a domineering oath. The ruler was not present and this female was able to take up the responsibility. She had courage and it was admirable and made one feel at ease. It was a very supportive look. And the civil and military officials standing behind her were moved when they saw this scene. The power of words was like this. This female seemed to be able to stir one's heart. She picked the most passionate part of the heart and made people's blood boil. Imperceptibly, it strengthened the Longyi city's city gates by another layer. Shen Miao turned and left. In the next few days, the rumors in Longyi had subsided. Even if there were busybodies inciting, the commoners would immediately refute. After all that day, Shen Miao had personally ascended the palace under such a dangerous situation and her words were encouraging. As long as the commoners settled down, the power of the people's hearts would be shown. However, the Lui rebels were attacking even more ferociously outside the city. They seemed to be in a frenzy. Shen Miao had to look at the usual memorials and at the same time arrange for the imperial guards to reinforce the city's defenses. She was busy all day. Moreover, she was pregnant, so she felt a little powerless. On this day, she had just woken up early when she saw Luo Tan running in. Seeing her, she said, "Biao youngest sister, someone is here to see you." Shen Miao frowned, "Who?" In the palace, other than speaking a few words to those officials when she was in court, no one would specially come to see her. She did not have any relatives or friends in Longyi and the best were all in the palace. "Let me help you out to take a look," Luo Tan said. Luo Tan helped Shen Miao out and when they reached the main hall, they saw a person sitting at the table and Jing Zhe was pouring tea for that person. The person who came was wearing a green robe and was still as proud as she remembered. Shen Miao cried out involuntarily, Mr. Pei. Pei Lang turned his head. One parted for nearly a year and too many things had happened in this 1 year. In the beginning when Pei Lang chose to leave, it was already the best choice from some aspects. After all, in the memories of the previous lifetime, no one knew what kind of mood they should have to face the other. When he saw Shen Miao, he smiled instead, heard that Long Yi is in trouble and the palace is in danger. Although I don't have any special abilities, at least I can share some of the burden. Shen Miao frowned and did not speak for a moment. Pei Lang smiled, there is no need to think too much. I am a Ming Qi's person and in Great Liang, at least we are from the same hometown. Furthermore, they were teacher and student back then, so it wasn't like they didn't have any friendship at all. This time, I'm here to help my fellow villagers. He looked at them with a calm smile, as if nothing had happened. Shen Miao carefully sized him up and saw that his expression was calm, as if he had let go of the past and her heart could not help but relax. For Shen Miao, that part of the past was something that had happened a long time ago. She placed more importance on the future. Pei Lang's appearance could indeed help her share a lot of problems. She said, I'm going to owe you another favor. Last time, it was Pei Lang who took a blow for her. Oh? Pei Lang asked in a soft voice. Then he laughed and said, it's good that you can think that way. When he raised his head to look at Shen Miao, he said, do not waste time. Now start to deal with Long Ye's most important matter. What was the most important matter for Long Ye now? It was naturally to clean up the rebels and protect the safety of the commoners in the city. Because of the war, there were all sorts of court matters and the number of memorials were endless. It was already very difficult to rely on Shen Miao who was pregnant to manage it. Moreover, she was about to give birth and really could not handle such a big movement. Chapter 1125. After Pei Lang came, the burden on Shen Miao's body became lighter. Pei Lang was originally Fu Xiuyi's advisor and naturally had some understanding of the court's matters. Moreover, he was naturally talented in this aspect, so he was well-rounded. Even if it was his first time entering the Great Liang's court, he was able to do it with ease. But there was also a difficulty. Long Ye's manpower was able to protect the commoners in the city, but to divert the remaining strength to clear out the rebels, it would be too much to care about the head and not the tail. No one dared to take this risk, but it was not a solution to continue in this stalemate. Drag on for another month or so and when Xie Jingxing returns, these rebels would be cleared out. Shen Miao said to Pei Lang, it will be fine as long as one persevere through this period of time. Pei Lang was helping to look at the booklet. Neither of them mentioned the previous lifetime or any sensitive matters related to it, as if it was the past that both of them had a tacit understanding. There would not be any benefits in making it clear. Sometimes, acting dumb was the best way to get along. When Pei Lang saw the silly Yi Hongguang, he was stunned for a long time. Most likely he knew that Yi Hongguang and Fu Ming were too similar. Thus he was exceptionally gentle towards Yi Hongguang and Yi Hongguang liked to play with the patient Pei Lang. Even so, Pei Lang was somewhat worried, but the Lu family rebels also know this truth. The day before yesterday, the city garrison had already reported and the Lu family rebels have not made any moves. There must be something strange going on. I have a feeling that they are preparing something. No matter what they are preparing, our situation will not change at all. Shen Miao sighed. Initially one thought that the Great Liang's border was securely guarded. Long Yi was impregnable and even if there were any movements, it would only be the mutual suspicion of the officials. Who knew that the Lu family still had a card up their sleeves? The Lu family hate the imperial family to the bone, so they knew that they have no hope of victory and still hit a card at the last moment. The old thief's death is not to be regretted. Shen Miao held the booklet but her eyes were looking out of the window, but Long Yi cannot be lost. Not even one step must be taken. Luo Tan walked over with a food basket and smiled, both of you have read the booklet for such a long time and one must eat. Especially Biao youngest sister, you are not alone now, you have a child. You're starving yourself, but you want my nephew or niece to starve as well. What kind of mother are you? She took the pastries and soup out of the basket and said, Mr. Pei, have some. I've seen everything made in the kitchen with my own eyes. I promise, it's very clean. Luo Tan stayed in the palace all day and seemed to have nothing to do. Shen Miao and Pei Lang were looking at the booklet and she was unable to help, so she simply put all her thoughts on Shen Miao's child. There were many people in the palace, and eating was even more troublesome. Many women's children were mysteriously lost while eating. Luo Tan simply moved a small stool every day and guarded the imperial kitchen. Even if there was Tao Gugu and Jing Zhiguyu, it was not enough as she had to personally witness all kinds of things being cooked. Shen Miao gently smiled, it has been hard on you. Pei Lang's gaze fell on Shen Miao's bulging abdomen and hesitated for a moment before asking, about. It should be within these few days, right? One cannot say for sure. Shen Miao said, but I feel that it should be soon. She caressed her lower abdomen and a flash of gentleness appeared in her eyes. It is really difficult for him to be born in such a chaotic time of war. What chaotic time of war? Luo Tan said, Biao youngest sister's words are not right. One must know that now the world is at peace and the chaotic times are stable and it is a prosperous time. When brother-in-law returns, that little fellow will have a father who had won the war and the entire world will be cheering for his birth. How would one be able to encounter such an honor? Why does such a good thing sound like a bad thing when it comes from your mouth? Chapter 1127. Luo Tan grew up with the Luo family and had a sense of heroism and courage in her bones. The more dangerous the situation, the more she was not afraid. Her words made the blood of everyone in the palace boil with excitement. Even the palace maids and eunuchs in the Wei Yang palace all knelt down and said that they would live and die with the imperial palace. But it was not that hopeless. Shen Miao sat in the middle of the hall. The hall was very spacious and when it was too spacious, it seemed somewhat vast. Pei Lang sat at the side flipping through the booklet while Shen Miao was in the hall looking at the documents that were sent by the court officials. As for Luo Tan, one did not know where she found the 9 interlocking rings to play with. Tao Gonggu and Deng Gonggu sat at the side and warmed the tea from time to time. It seemed that each of them had their own matters and were very busy. This diluted the tense atmosphere a little. But it was only a little because from time to time there would be reports from the imperial guards. What was the current situation in the city? Those rebels were indeed ferocious and massacred the commoners everywhere, as if they wanted to go against the imperial family, causing panic everywhere. Fortunately Shen Miao had mobilized more than half of the imperial guards and the city guards to fight with the Lu family endlessly, and for a moment there was no telling who had the upper hand. These rebels were very cunning. A portion of them were disturbing the hearts of the commoners and a portion of them were secretly outflanking and attempting to attack the imperial palace. Listening to the sounds of weapons clashing and the shouts of the soldiers from time to time. Occasionally, with the light of the fire, it was impossible for anyone to truly calm down. It was like a bow that was pulled to its fullest, loosened and then pulled to its fullest. Every move and action would affect one's heart, making it hard for one's heart to settle down. This night was exceptionally long, so long that the smoke from the incense burner was especially slow and scattered in the air, giving off a quiet fragrance, but it made one's heart jump to their throat. When the morning light shone, the movements outside gradually became smaller. Deng Gonggang and Tao Gonggu also revealed an expression of being relieved of a heavy burden. The head of the imperial guards came in from outside and said to Shen Miao, replying to Qin Wang Fei, the Lu family rebels have withdrawn out of the city and the rebels in the city have been purged. The city guards are currently pacifying the commoners. This meant that the crisis had passed. Luo Tan stretched lazily. She had been fiddling with the 9 interlocking rings for the whole night without being able to solve it. It wasn't that she was stupid, but her mind had not been on the 9 interlocking rings the whole night, so it was a wonder that she could solve it. She yawned. Even though she was excited, she could not hide her tiredness and said, "Biao, youngest sister, the crisis has been resolved. I accompanied you for a night and it can be considered as a little contribution." Shen Miao raised her head. She was better than Luo Tan, other than looking tired, she was not that sleepy. He only smiled and said, "Everyone has worked hard. When His Highness returns, they will be rewarded according to their contributions." The leader of the guards also smiled and said, "Qin Wang Fei has worked hard too." To be able to remain calm at such a critical juncture and even accompany them in the palace for an entire night, from a certain point of view, it could be said that he was fighting alongside them. For a female to be able to do all these, it would be especially admirable. Moreover, everyone could clearly see what kind of person Shen Miao was these days. If it was not for her leading and suppressing Long Yi, one feared that Long Yi would be in a mess now. Pei Lang also raised his head from the booklet and looked at Shen Miao with a slight smile, as if he was relaxed. Tao Gonggu was most worried about Shen Miao's body and said, "Since everything is all right, Qin Wang Fei should rest first. Ordinary people would not be able to stand it after sitting for an entire night, not to mention a double body." She came over to support Shen Miao. Shen Miao was supported by Tao Gonggu and just took a step out. She felt that her abdomen dropped and she suddenly paused. Chapter 1128. When Luo Tan saw it, she said, "Your body must be stiff from sitting for a long time. Let me help you massage it." When one's legs and feet are numb, it is difficult to take a step. It is not so. Shen Miao forced herself to calm down and said, "First help me to invite a midwife over." Tao Gugu and Luo Tan were startled at first, but it was Tao Gugu who immediately reacted. One could not say if she was more excited or panicked as she said, "Quickly. Quickly invite the 2 midwives from the palace over." Midwives were the best midwives and were famous midwives in Long Yi. No matter how difficult the birth was, it was just a small matter in their hands. In order to be safe, Tao Gugu found 2 of them. The leader, older maid Li, said, "Qin Wang Fei need not be nervous. It is the first time for a female to give birth. The first time is strange but the second is familiar. After the first time, one would not be afraid in the future and it would be very smooth." Older maid Lu was older than older maid Li and scolded, "What nonsense are you saying in front of the nobles?" She then looked at Shen Miao and said curiously, "But Qin Wang Fei is very calm. This older maid has delivered so many young ladies but it is the first time to see one this calm." Shen Miao was supported to lie on the bed. Her expression was calm, as if she did not take this matter to heart. From the beginning to the end, she did not show any expression of panic, which almost made people think that it was not the first time she gave birth. But even if it was the second time giving birth, those matrons would not be this relaxed. Shen Miao's heart was clear that she was not as calm as she looked. Her memory of the child could be traced back to a long time ago. At that time, Fu Xiuyi did not care about her and giving birth seemed to be very difficult, so she gave birth to the child with uneasiness. Now this child came into this world with everyone's expectations. No matter if it was Xie Jingxing and herself, or Empress Xianda and Emperor Yonglu, everyone in the Shen family knew that she was pregnant and would definitely treasure this child. The more precious something was, the more one would be afraid of it being broken. She forced herself to inhale and exhale deeply to get rid of the messy things in her mind. "Qin Wang Fei, get up and eat something first." Older maid Li picked up the bowl of brown sugar and eggs from the side and placed it in front of Shen Miao. "One will only have strength after eating something. It will take some time for the birth of the child and one will have to wait for a while." Shen Miao took it over. Actually she did not have much appetite but she still managed to finish the entire night. "Qin Wang Fei isn't delicate at all." Lu Pazi praised, "Those young wives in the past always had a bit of a temper. If she was the wife of a wealthy family, she would be even more picky." She refused to eat even a little, saying that she was not feeling well. Later on, she had no strength to give birth, and she was the one who suffered. Qin Wang Fei is very sensible. This way, when the child is born, it will be very smooth. She saw that Shen Miao's expression was gentle and was not picky about their village identity, thus when she spoke, she was also intimate and not overly polite. Shen Miao knew that both of them were talking to distract her so that time would pass faster. After all, she hadn't even given birth yet. Outside, Aunt Tao and the others were waiting. Luo Tan said, "My heart is beating very fast. One do not know if youngest Biao younger sister will give birth to a boy or a girl. After being curious for so long, there is finally an answer. No matter if it is the little heir or little Junju, when His Highness Prince of First Rank returns, he would be very happy and in pain." Aunt Tao smiled, "One just do not know how long one would have to wait." Deng Gonggang also appeared somewhat nervous. This is after all the first junior of the imperial family. If Her Majesty the Empress, His Majesty the Emperor and Empress Dowager's spirits in heaven, they would feel gratified. Chapter 1129. Needless to say, the people of Prince Rui's residence were like this. Even Mo Qing, who usually did not show his emotions on his face, looked so red. Song Yang was jumping up and down non-stop as he said, "Before I left, I made a bet with Tai Yi. I bet that I would give birth to a little Junju, and I bet all my wealth. If I lose, I won't even be able to protect my wife." Jingzhe happened to hear it and scoffed, "I see that it is a little heir." "Hey, why is it the little heir?" Song Yang asked. "I think it's the little Canton princess. Little Shitzi is little Shitzi." Jingzhe was not to be outdone. "Stop quarreling. Guyu tried to smooth things over. Are you quarreling or not? Where is Uncle Tang?" Uncle Tang was in the corner, chanting Amit Ba as he whispered, "Ancestors of the Shao family, please bless the princess consort and her son's safety, mother and daughter's safety, everyone's safety." From morning to afternoon, Shen Miao finally began to give birth in the evening. The midwife asked the palace maids to prepare clean water, towels, clean scissors, and other things. Luo Tan wanted to go in and take a look, but Aunt Tao stopped her. Tao Gugu and a few palace maids went in, along with Jingzhe and Guyu, so that no one would do anything. Shen Miao moaned softly on the bed. She endured it as best she could, but the pain grew stronger and stronger until it was almost excruciating. The pain was worse than any physical pain she had experienced since her rebirth. It was as if someone was cutting her abdomen with a pair of scissors. "Qin Wang Fei, work harder. Use more strength." Older Maidli said, "I can see the child's shadow." Outside, Pei Lang and the others felt as if time was passing like a year. From time to time, palace maids would carry a silver basin in and out, and the blood in the basin was a shocking sight. Luo Tan anxiously grabbed the nanny beside her and asked, "What's going on? Why is there so much blood?" The wet nurse comforted her, "It doesn't matter. Women have to bleed when giving birth. Don't worry." However, Pei Lang's heart was far away. In the past lifetime, Fu Xiuyi did not care about Fu Ming and Wan Yu's birth at all. At that time, he happened to pass by and Fu Xiuyi let him take a look. When Shen Miao was giving birth to a child, from a certain point of view, it was Pei Lang who accompanied her through it. She did not expect that in this lifetime, Xie Jingxing was not by her side and he was the one who accompanied her through it. This was also good. At least at this moment, she was not alone. At least he had been there for her. Every moment felt extremely long. After an unknown period of time, an old maid in the room exclaimed, "He's out. It's the little heir. Ah, there's another one. They're twins. Twins. Prince Consort is so lucky." Not long after, he heard a wah sound coming from inside. The baby's cry was very loud. Everyone was overjoyed. Luo Tan almost fainted from happiness. But before they could catch their breath, they heard older maid Li exclaim, "Qin Wang Fei, hold on, don't sleep. Don't sleep." Pei Lang's heart tightened, and before he could react, he heard Tao Gu's sorrowful voice, "Qin Wang Fei, hold on." Luo Tan was impatient and no longer cared about being afraid. She entered the room. Pei Lang hesitated for a moment before hearing Tao Gu's voice, "Teacher Pei. Teacher Pei, come in." Pei Lang rushed into the room. Shen Miao was covered with a quilt and her face was incomparably pale. She said to older maid Lu and older maid Li beside her, "It is all right as long as the child is saved." Qin Wang Fei. Older maid Lu and older maid Li still wanted to say something but could not speak. Chapter 1130. What exactly is going on? Luo Tan was so anxious that she was about to cry. What is wrong with Biao youngest sister? Why would you say such words without rhyme or reason? Qin Wang Fei's body was weak from the start, and this is a twin. One was distracted and tired before giving birth and the fetus was not stable. Now one's body is extremely tired and had lost too much blood. Lu Mama could not continue speaking. It is very difficult for me to give birth. I feel that I am afraid I cannot make it. Biao older sister, when you see my father, mother and eldest brother, help me say that I am unfilial to not be able to serve them in their old age. Luo Tan shook her head desperately. Biao youngest sister, these words cannot be said by me. Do not speak nonsense. You will be fine and alive to see Gufu and Gumu. It is unfilial for you to say such words. Do not say it, do not say it. At the end, there was a sobbing tone and she could not control herself. Shen Miao smiled helplessly and looked at Pei Lang at the side. Pei Lang's expression was absent-minded and his lips were slightly trembling. There was no trace of his usual calm appearance. No, you can persist. He said, I have not repaid what I owe you. You must live a long and healthy life. It was as if he was forcing himself to believe something. Teacher Pei no longer owes me anything. If you really want to repay, then promise me to protect my child. Hope that he can grow up healthy. She panted with great effort, as if she had used up all her strength. When you see Xia Jingxing, say sorry to him. I cannot wait anymore. Thank him for always being willing to protect me and tolerate me. To be able to be husband and wife with him, I am very happy. Qin Wang Fei. Tao Gugu cried out. Let me see my child. She said. Two old maids wiped the children carelessly and wrapped them in swaddling clothes before sending them to Shen Miao's side. Tao Gugu said with tears in her eyes, it is too little air and they are very healthy. Shen Miao's eyes landed on the two children. She stretched out her fingers with difficulty and traced the two children's eyebrows and said softly, when these two children grow up, their eyebrows must be very good looking. No matter if it is father or mother. I and Xia Jingxing had suffered a lot. If heaven is a good person, one would not bear to let them suffer again. Tao Gugu had already started to wipe her tears. Luo Tan turned her head away and wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I really want to watch you two grow up. Her gaze rested on the two children with deep, deep affection. It was as if she was looking at people thousands of miles away through the two babies' faces. I miss you so much, her voice faded away. In the 10,000s of miles away, the young commander suddenly felt a pain in his chest. This pain spread from his chest to every corner of his body, so painful that he couldn't help but bend over. He held on to one leg of the table and gasped for air. Gao Yang opened the curtains and walked in. Seeing this scene, he was startled and quickly reached out to feel his pulse. After feeling his pulse, he asked curiously, there's nothing wrong. What's wrong? Xia Jingxing frowned and suddenly said, attack Sun Yang tomorrow. Why did you suddenly decide? Gao Yang was shocked. Let's finish this quickly. Xia Jingxing turned around and walked out. The Great Liang attacked and occupied the Qin country of Xuanyang. At this point, the situation of the three states being divided had lasted for more than 100 years and was finally broken by the young Prince Rui. The warlords vying for supremacy finally came to an end and the grand hegemony finally fell to the Great Liang. Emperor Qin left in defeat and was annihilated by the enemy midway. In the world, there was only the Emperor of the Great Liang and there would no longer be the Emperor of Ming Qi or the Emperor of the Qin country. History would only remember the victors. Even though it was sad to be a subjugated slave, but if the old monarch was tyrannical and the new monarch was benevolent to the commoners, then the hearts of the people would eventually fall to the side of leniency. Chapter 1131. The commoners were not fools. Since ancient times, there was the saying of returning a plum for a peach. A wise ruler would be supported everywhere. The Great Liang soldiers were about to return home. To return home after a victorious battle was a glorious matter. Those families that had people who joined the army and were still alive would naturally have light on their faces. Even the corpses buried on the battlefield, even though it was regretful, they were also proud. The commoners in Longyi City were practically running and jumping in joy, waiting for the victorious army to return. Compared to the liveliness of the commoners, the palace was cold and cheerless. Luo Tan sat in the courtyard. It was rare to see such a warm sun in an autumn day, shining on one's body, making one feel warm. The courtyard was covered with books, and Jing Zhe and Gu Yu were drying the books. Luo Tan looked at it and laughed. Previously in the Shaochun city, she would always take these books out to dry. I felt that the books would not spoil, so what is there to dry? But she was so particular about it. Did not think that now, it was me who took the initiative to do these things for her. The green-clad male standing beside her did not speak. Pei Lang seemed to have aged a lot in one night. He did things silently. Without Shin Miao's instructions, he could not look at the booklet. Every day he could only read the books and not do anything else. This kind of feudal days seemed to be very painful for him. There was not a bit of joyous atmosphere in the palace. Aunt Tao walked out with 2 children in her arms. Luo Tan quickly stood up and took one of them. The young masters are all very healthy. Tao Gugu smiled. Wet Mother said that they are very obedient at night and did not make any noise. There was also a smile on Luo Tan's face as she said, to be this obedient, it really follows Mother's temperament. Her voice stopped abruptly. Pei Lang's gaze landed on the 2 children and his eyes slightly dimmed. Which is the elder brother and which is the younger brother, I really cannot differentiate at all. Luo Tan diverted the topic, they are exactly the same. If it is like this now, what can be done in the future? Tao Gugu smiled, it is not a hindrance. In the future one can change clothes and dress up to differentiate. Moreover, when the children grow up, their temperament would be different, so naturally one would be able to differentiate clearly. But how to be called? Luo Tan was vexed, which is the elder brother and which is the younger brother? Biao youngest sister did not even have time to give them names. She squatted for a moment and then laughed in annoyance, I always say not to mention but I always mention. Forget it. When Tao Gugu saw this, she wanted to say a few words of comfort but saw Gu Yu and Jing Zhe rushing in from outside. Gu Yu said, Prince Wang has returned. What? Pei Lang and Luo Tan were both stunned. According to the speed of the Great Liang's army, there should be more than a month before they return to the capital. Prince of the first rank had brought men and horses back alone. Gu Yu whispered, but Furen, after a pause, Pei Lang said softly, let's go and take a look. Xie Jingxing strode into the palace. The short span of a year was enough to change many things. Emperor Yonglu and Empress Xianda both passed away, and the large palace seemed to have become much more deserted. Eunuch Deng smiled and said, Your Highness, please go and see the 2 young masters first. Tao Gugu and Miss Luo are playing with them. Xie Jingxing frowned, what about Shin Miao? Before his voice landed, he saw Luo Tan and Tao Gugu carrying a child walking over from the back of the hall, with Pei Lang following behind them. The infant in the swaddling clothes had just woken up and was waving his little hands in a lively manner. The chubby little hands were exceptionally cute under the sun. Xie Jingxing's footsteps paused. What about Shen Miao? He slowly opened his mouth. Pei Lang took a step forward and said softly, "Go and see her." Chapter 1132. Gao Zhan stroked his white beard and shook his head. This old one had tried my best to save her life. This body was like a dried-up oil lamp, but she had a strong will to live. Perhaps there was something that she was not reconciled to and was not willing to take her last breath. With that last breath, this old one used the golden needles to seal her acupuncture points and saved her life. But it was only saving her one life. "Grandfather, what is the meaning of this?" Gao Yang asked. He had left home for many years, and when he embarked on his official career, he went against the Gao family's ideals and was expelled from the family. There had been no contact with the Gao family for many years. This grandfather actually made Gao Zhan's body slightly tremble. The meaning is that perhaps she will sleep forever. Even though she is breathing and has a pulse, she will never wake up and never be able to open her eyes. Perhaps she will wake up, but... He looked at Gao Yang, just like the young master of the Yi family that you treated. After she wakes up, no one knows what she will be like. That was to say that after Shen Miao woke up, perhaps she would become as silly as Yi Hongguang. But there was a greater possibility that she would continue to sleep like this year after year and finally die of old age without opening her eyes to look at Xie Jingxing, isn't that? Ji Yushu swallowed down the words living dead. But even if he did not say it out, the surrounding people also understood the meaning of Gao Zhan's words. In this case, Gao Zhan asked Xie Jingxing, "Your Highness, are you still willing to wait? There is no harm in waiting for as long as it takes." Xie Jingxing said, she had fulfilled her promise to wait for my return. So what if I wait for her for a lifetime? Her life is mine, and without my permission, even King of Hell cannot take it away. When he spoke, his eyes were cold and had the coldness of Emperor Yongle, but it still had his own unbridled arrogance, as if he did not put anything in his eyes. Everyone was silent. Shen Miao's eyes were closed and could not hear these sounds. She seemed to be sleeping very soundly. Luo Tan said, "Go out and let her rest for some days." For this 1 year, she had not had a good rest. Xie Jingxing treated that pair of babies extremely well. The subordinates and good friends that had followed him for many years were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped when they saw his patient look. It was said that although young fathers were very happy to be a father, because of their natural carelessness, they would always resist taking care of their children. And with Xie Jingxing's character, how could he be gentle and patient? However, contrary to everyone's expectations, he spent time with the 2 children every day. Not only did he not mind doing it himself, but he was also picky about the wet nurse. As a man, he had to ask about every little thing. The 2 children only had nicknames which were given by Xie Jingxing. One was called First Day, and the other was 15th Day. Everyone felt that this nickname was too casual, but Xie Jingxing argued, the moon is the roundest on the 1st and 15th of the first month. Moreover, it is my own son. What does it have to do with you all? Get lost. Everyone could only scram. But he couldn't care less about anything. He didn't care about naming the baby, he didn't care about taking care of the baby. He still had to do what needed to be done. Emperor Yongli's imperial edict was known to the entire court. Now that the world was at peace, Xie Jingxing also wanted to ascend the throne. Ascending the throne naturally took its course, but what about establishing an empress? Who should he appoint? Shen Miao was still lying down, and perhaps she would not wake up in this lifetime. Perhaps when she woke up, she would be an idiot. There was no precedent of such an empress in any of the previous dynasties. It did not seem possible. The days in the future were too long and people's hearts would change. Xie Jingxing could say that he was loyal to Shen Miao now, but who could say for sure in the future? When Luo Tan heard the news, she was very unwilling. The Shen family's army came back together with the great Liang's army and had not reached Longyi country yet. Thus she did not know about Shen Miao's matter. As Shen Miao's only relative, Luo Tan was not willing to see Shen Miao being wronged. She was even more unwilling that Shen Miao had sacrificed everything but did not get anything. Chapter 1133. She could not scold Xie Jingxing because Xie Jingxing himself did not do anything wrong, so she told him about Shen Miao's hard work in this 1 year. She said that Shen Miao guarded Longyi, the imperial palace and the great Liang's imperial family's dignity with her big belly. There were so many times when it was obviously very dangerous, but Shen Miao still managed to withstand it. She did not need to be like this. Xie Jingxing listened to Luo Tan's words in silence and looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. So? Luo Tan did not know what to say and said, "So it is fine if you know it in your heart." She could not describe the feeling in her heart. It was suffocating and awkward, but she did not know how to relieve it. As she was running, she bumped into a person. When she looked up, it was Gao Yang. Gao Yang felt strange and asked her what was wrong. Luo Tan glared at him fiercely before leaving. Xie Jingxing walked to the pond and wanted to drink tea, but at the end he called Deng Gonggong to remove the tea and bring a pot of wine. At the side of the pond, under the moonlight, this was the last snow wine that Empress Xianda and Emperor Yongle drank. Everyone sighed that the Emperor and Empress were deeply in love, but the heavens were unfair. On the surface, he was indeed luckier than Emperor Yongle. At least he was still alive, and as long as he was alive, everything was possible. But what if Shen Miao did not wake up for the rest of her life? If she lived like this, would she lose a lot of interest in the rest of her life? Xie Jingxing did not have much enthusiasm for the throne, and if he lost the people around him, it would be a very sad thing to live a boring life for the rest of his life. Someone's footsteps were heard, and when one looked towards the direction of the sound, it was Pei Lang. Pei Lang was like a gentle and modest gentleman, as if he did not drink a drop of wine in his entire life. Seeing such a person, one would feel that he should be a proud and aloof scholar drinking tea and playing the zither. However, he sat down opposite Xie Jingxing, looked for a wine cup, and poured himself a cup of wine. The wine cup made of jade emitted a glimmer under the moonlight, intoxicating people even before they drank it. Pei Lang said, "Tomorrow you will ascend the throne. Congratulations." Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up in a smile but did not seem to be happy. "What about her?" Pei Lang went straight to the point. "What do you plan to do?" Xie Jingxing slowly turned his head and stared at Pei Lang for a while before saying, "Is Mr. Pei very concerned? Previously, I had a teacher-student relationship with Wang Fei." Pei Lang was unmoved and continued to speak. "After the imperial city was in danger, we could be considered friends in times of adversity. I don't want to accuse you of changing anything. I'm just curious." "Oh." Xie Jingxing lowered his head to drink a mouthful of wine and lightly said, "What do you think should be done?" Qin Wang Fei once mentioned that she was not greedy for the position of Empress or any other position of power. Instead, she felt that it was a burden. However, if this was her responsibility, she would bear it. She is not a compassionate person, but she is willing to bear the burden for the people important to her. This important person includes the relatives of the Shen family, the child in her belly, and you. Pei Lang said. Qin Wang Fei said that her life has always been exceptionally rough. The heavens have also been very harsh to her. Sometimes, thinking from the beginning, it seems that she has never encountered any good times. Therefore, he never dared to hope for the blessings of the heavens. The only extravagant hope I had was for the people I loved to be safe and happy." Xie Jingxing's eyes moved slightly. Pei Lang turned his head to look at him and said with a smile, she had never encountered any good times before. Things that others could easily obtain, she had to put in great effort to obtain. Even some of the smallest wishes were harder for her than others. Now that the bitterness is over and the sweetness is here, she had fallen into a deep sleep before drinking the sweet dew. The heavens are really too unfair to her. But it is precisely because she never had any extravagant requests from the human heart that she is more pitiful and admirable. Chapter 1134. Your Highness Prince of First Rank. Pei Lang held the wine cup in his hand and smiled, now that you have accomplished your great undertaking and ascended the throne is in sight. You have the country and perhaps there will be beauties in the future. But I still have to remind you not to let yourself regret. His voice was slightly low. If one regrets, there would be no chance to turn back in this lifetime. Every day of pain is torture. Xie Jingxing looked at him thoughtfully and asked, you have regretted it before? Once, and tried my best to redeem it. Even though I managed to redeem some of it, but what was lost could not be regained. Pei Lang sighed. Both of them were silent. Just at this moment, Tao Gugu rushed over and upon seeing Xie Jingxing and Pei Lang drinking, she said awkwardly, Your Highness, the two young masters are crying non-stop and the wet nurse and old woman could not do anything. It is better for you to go and take a look. The 1st and 15th days were coaxed by Xie Jingxing every day and their temperament was very arrogant. No matter how others coaxed them, they could not do anything but Xie Jingxing coaxed them. Speaking of which, it was strange. Shen Miao's temperament was very calm and would not give trouble to others, but she gave birth to 2 children that seemed to be here to collect debts. It was still alright previously, but once Xie Jingxing came back, his temper grew. It was fortunate that Xie Jingxing was patient with children. If it was another young father, one feared that they would have already flung their sleeves and quit. Xie Jingxing got up and said, I will go and take a look. Suddenly he thought of something and turned to look at Pei Lang. He stared at him and said, This person of yours is very interesting. But many thanks for your reminder. He drank the remaining wine in the cup in one gulp and said, I never do anything that I regret and also do not do anything that would make others regret. You worry too much. Xie Jingxing and Tao Gugu left. Looking at their backs, Pei Lang shook his head and laughed at himself before muttering, worry too much? His expression gradually became bitter, really, do not give others a chance at all. So hateful. On the day of Xie Jingxing's ascension, the sky was bright and the sun was warm and the wind was clear. It was called Shaojing. The 9-tiered palace stood tall and majestic. Dragons danced above the throne room. Hundreds of officials stood in front and courtiers stood to the left and right. The young emperor had changed into a peacock-feathered dragon robe made of gold. The yellow robe was embroidered with golden threads. The corners of the robe were fine and exquisite. It was majestic and dazzling, causing others to be unable to look at it directly. His appearance was peerlessly handsome and he wore a proper crown. However, he had a pair of frivolous peach blossom eyes. Even so, wherever his gaze passed, it was like the cold wind in October, filled with killing intent. No one dared to belittle this young emperor. Even though he was the youngest person to ascend the throne in the history of the Great Liang, but he had truly carried the war flag and went to the battlefield, sweeping away the military generals of the Qin country and Ming Qi. In the imperial court, he was good at using crafty schemes and forced people into a sorry state. The imperial edict of succession had been established, the imperial jade seal was in his hands. From now on, the Great Liang dynasty, the world would welcome a new master. After the ceremony, he unexpectedly walked to one side. The courtiers did not dare to raise their heads until they heard the emperor's voice, appoint an empress. Everyone knew that Qin Wang Fei was currently in a long sleep, so why would she suddenly appoint an empress? Everyone was puzzled, and when they looked up, they saw that the young emperor was hugging a female and placing her on the empress seat at the other side. His actions were very careful, as if he was handling a rare treasure. Among the courtiers, other than Gao Yang, Ji Yushu and a few others, the rest of them revealed a shocked expression. Someone came forward and said, "Your Majesty, you must not." "Oh." Emperor Shaojing turned his head and looked at him. His eyes turned and smiled, "Why not?" "Duh. Furen is still not awake. How can the mother of the country be an unconscious person?" Chapter 1135. One had never heard of any country's empress being someone who had not woken up. "Cannot do it." Emperor Shaojing seemed to be deliberately teasing him. "Jin wants to do it, so what?" That official was an old official, and when Emperor Yonglu was alive, he was very respectful towards him and seemed to be very confident. "Could it be that your Majesty wants to leave the empress position empty forever because of her?" The officials were in an uproar. A person who had been asleep for a long time would always occupy the empress position. Even if it was just a title, the meaning it represented was very different. In the future, even if there were new beauties entering the palace, as long as the empress position would always be occupied, then the position of these women's children would never be able to surpass the 1st and 15th. Emperor Shaojing laughed softly until the officials were somewhat dazed. He laughed until the official who spoke first panicked. One heard the emperor said, "Empty empress position. There is only one woman in Zhen's inner palace. How can it be empty?" Everyone was shocked. "Your Majesty." That old official wanted to speak. "Official Su, Zhen, remember that you have 2 little granddaughters in your room and they are in the prime of their youth." Emperor Shaojing said. That person was startled and his heart was anxious, but there was a faint secret joy. But the next moment, the secret joy disappeared and one could only hear the emperor saying, "How about Zhen betroth her to young General Song of Wuguan?" That young General Song was young and promising, but it was a pity that he was blinded in one eye on the battlefield and would not have a future in this lifetime. Official Su's face suddenly turned ashen. "Zhen is not here to listen to your opinions or to listen to your criticism. Zhen is only here to inform you of this result." He sat on the emperor's throne and looked down at the officials. "Zhen is the son of heaven, the master. If any of you have any opinion on the orders that Zhen gives, feel free to raise it. But if it is about Zhen's inner palace and Zhen's private affairs, then Zhen will definitely," he thought for a moment, "return it double. At that time, do not say that Zhen is randomly matchmaking." He laughed mischievously and in a moment, he returned to the handsome youth that rode a horse lazily on the streets and alleys of Mingqi. It was just that at this time, he had already hidden all his sharpness under the sheath. Even though the sheath looked magnificent, no one dared to try if it was pulled out to cut iron like mud. "If you don't believe me, feel free to try me," he said with a faint smile. He really did not look like an emperor. He was not serious enough, but he looked more dangerous than the emperors of the past. He was comparable to Emperor Yongla. The more he acted like he didn't care, the more it made people's hearts beat fast. Everyone knew that this Prince Rui was a black-bellied fellow. If you were targeted by him, you wouldn't even know how you died. Most importantly, he completely disregarded etiquette and reputation. He was not afraid of anything. Everyone believed that Emperor Shaojing would definitely do something like marrying this official's granddaughter to another official's younger brother, or marrying this official's grandson to the daughter of his sworn enemy. It was fine if they weren't of the same social class, but what he was afraid of was the result of being restrained. If this restriction coincidentally met with the spearhead, the clan wouldn't even know when it would weaken and disappear. No one dared to use their clan as a bargaining chip. Everyone thought, forget it. Now that it was a honeyed atmosphere, Emperor Shaojing would dare to do whatever he wanted. Perhaps after a few more days, he would be tired of it or be infatuated with a new beauty. Men, when they love, it is true love, and when they do not love, they really do not love. Why do we have to do these arduous and unrewarding things here? With this thought, the officials were relieved. They did not say anything more, and there were even those who flattered and said that Emperor Xiaojing and Furen were deeply in love with each other, which became a much-told story. Chapter 1136. Xie Jingxing coldly looked at the faces of the officials, as if he was looking at all the living beings in the world through 1,000 red and purple masks. It was somewhat ridiculous but pitiful. He half knelt down in front of Shen Miao. Men have gold under their knees. Even if it was an ordinary man, it was really surprising to do such an action. Moreover, he was not an ordinary person, but the current emperor of the Great Liang, the master of the world. But he was half kneeling in front of a female in such a pious manner. Shen Miao was properly supported by him and sat on the high seat. She was also led by Tao Gugu to wear a gorgeous palace dress, and the corners of her eyes were sprinkled with fine gold powder, making her look very arrogant. Wearing the golden Empress court dress, her eyes were closed and her long eyelashes hung down, as if she was in a deep sleep. She was really a very beautiful and tough female. Gao Zhan said that Shen Miao had an unfulfilled wish, so she fought with her last breath to survive, thus Gao Zhan was able to save her life. Then what was her last wish? To see Xie Jingxing one more time, to see the 1st and 15th days grow up, or to bid farewell to Shen Xian and the rest. Xie Jingxing leaned over to her ear and teased, "Bring you to be an empress, do you not open your eyes to take a look?" Shen Miao could not hear what he said. She was in a deep sleep in her own world, as if she was going to sleep for a long time, for a lifetime. Xie Jingxing stared at her and said, "Know that you are tired. Get up after sleeping enough. One must look for mother on the 1st and 15th days." He stretched out his hand and held Shen Miao's cold hands. "I also miss you very much." The officials silently watched the young emperor do all this. They had been in the imperial court for many years, experiencing the ups and downs of the official world. Sometimes, they couldn't even distinguish their own hearts, not to mention being moved by others. In addition, Prince Rui was not considered a good person in the past, and there were not many officials that were not cheated by him, thus they gnashed their teeth in hatred towards him. But at this moment, they were somewhat reluctant to disturb this scene. It was as if through the picture of the emperor and the female, they could see some of their own shadows when they were young. Everyone would love someone, but it was just that this love could not last for a lifetime. Because it was too difficult, many people would give up halfway. Those that could walk to the end were very rare. Could Emperor Xiaojing do it? Xie Jingxing fiddled with the heavy crown and placed it on Shen Miao's head. His movements were gentle and solemn, as if he had placed something else on the crown. He leaned over and kissed the woman's eyes. Time blurred and quickly retreated, as if he had returned to a certain day a long time ago. He was still a mischievous youth, and she was still advancing step by step for the imperial family of Ming-Qi, protecting the Shen family with difficulty. He asked, "Shen Miao, do you want to be the empress?" No one would have thought that he would become the emperor, and she would become the empress. The world had gone round and round, and it had returned to the beginning. At the back of the throne room, Luo Tan, who was secretly watching, covered her mouth, as if she wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. She whispered, "He really made Biaomei his empress." Biaomei did not misjudge him. Behind him, Pei Lang also smiled faintly. His smile contained a sense of relief and a sense of loss, but it was mostly filled with gratification. He said, "That's great." In the spring day, apricot blossoms filled one's head, and as the breeze blew, the petals fluttered down, covering the ground with the fragrance of flowers. Birds stood on the branches and chirped, and the entire place was bustling with noise and excitement. Half a year's time passed in a blink of an eye, so fast that one could not catch anything. To the commoners of Longyi, this half a year was extremely pleasant. Perhaps it was because he had swept away the Qin country and Ming-Qi, or perhaps it was because the new emperor's thoughts were very different. In short, Emperor Xiaojing was a very competent emperor. Chapter 1137. He was very generous to the people, and the new court orders made the people applaud. There was a rumor in the streets that because Emperor Xiaojing liked to wander among the people when he was young and sympathized with the suffering of the people, he could always put himself in the people's shoes. In any case, Emperor Xiaojing's reputation was still very popular among the people. But it was not necessarily so among the court officials. In the past, when Emperor Yonglu was on the throne, he had to consider his face in everything he did. However, Emperor Xiaojing was a lawless person. He was generous to the people but harsh to his officials. He did not care about their feelings at all. Even those old officials who boasted of their seniority could not get any advantage in front of him. What was more frightening was that he balanced the power in all places very well, and his sense of smell was sharper than a mouse. Not to mention any movements, even if there were some subtle thoughts, he would be keenly aware of it. It caused the court officials to suspect that there was a traitor in their residence and would clean up the residence when there was nothing to do. The court officials were most dissatisfied with him because in this half a year, Emperor Xiaojing really did not accept a beauty. There was only a sleeping Empress Shen in the inner palace. This was really puzzling. In the beginning, some people thought that he just felt guilty to Empress Shen and thus made a promise. Moreover, even if the Empress position was unshakable, it would not be a problem to accept some other women. But as the days passed, this Emperor Xiaojing's inner palace was so clean that a bird could be seen. Everyone then realized that he was not acting. Some people suspected that he spoke too confidently before, and now he could not put down his face to slap his own mouth, so he was very understanding. He sent his own daughter to Flower Jieyu, and the next day, Emperor Xiaojing bestowed a marriage to the son of his archenemy. This time, the court officials were all in an uproar. Emperor Xiaojing's means were really vicious. Bestowing a marriage to his archenemy, not only did he kick away the woman he did not want, he also balanced the situation and warned the officials who were ready to make a move. Killing 3 birds with 1 stone. It was too bad. Over time, the court officials did not dare to send beauties to Emperor Xiaojing without permission. However, rumors were indispensable. A young man full of vigor, other than his unconscious wife, did not even have a woman. People could not help but wonder if he was gay. But when this rumor came out, it did not seem to affect anything. So what if the emperor was gay? He still had 2 sons, so he didn't have to worry about no one to inherit his empire. Moreover, this old man was very cunning. A scourge would live for 1,000 years. He would probably live for a long time. In short, the people submitted to him and the courtiers were obedient. The early morning sunlight was exceptionally good. Tao Gugu carried the 2 children to Xia Jingxing and said worriedly, "Emperor, you really want to bring the 2 little princes out for an outing?" Xia Jingxing held a child in each hand and straightforwardly stepped onto the carriage, and in the carriage, Shen Miao was sleeping. Xia Jingxing looked at her with a headache and said, "Sleeping for half a year, are you a pig?" Number 1 and number 15 shook their small hands and turned to look at Xia Jingxing curiously. Xia Jingxing said to the outside, "Let's go." Tai Yi waved his horse whip in resignation. His master had become the emperor and he, the leader of the Mou army, had actually become a horse driver. Xia Jingxing loved to bring the children out for an outing. Even though he was always stopped by Deng Gonggang and Uncle Tang, he was unable to stop them due to his high martial arts skills. He always said that one must let the children see the scenery at a young age, so that in the future they would not be easily blinded by the flashy world and would know what they really wanted. In fact, it was most likely an excuse, as he only wanted to bring Shen Miao out to play. The carriage stopped at Zhaoyang Mountain. The foot of the mountain was full of beautiful scenery. Xia Jingxing carried the children up and Mo Qing attentively sent over a small pot of rice paste. Recently number 1 and number 15 were learning to eat rice paste. The two children were very picky about their food and could fly to the sky after drinking rice paste. As a matter of fact, Tai Yi was carrying number 1 and Mo Qing was carrying number 15. Xia Jingxing was feeding them rice paste and the two little brats were very unwilling to kick, making one's heart hurt. Xia Jingxing's anger rose and said, "Give me the children." He casually found a large red flower cloth that Jing Zhe used to tie the food basket and tied number 1 and the basket on his back. He then held number 15 in his arms and forcefully fed number 15 the rice paste. Number 15 and number 15 made a ruckus. Xia Jingxing let the Mou army to push away and not to interfere. He really went against the two little brats. A dignified ruler of a country, with a child tied on his back and another child in his arms. There was also a large red flower cloth tied on his body and he was looking at the other child with deep hatred as he fed the rice paste. Everyone in the Mou army could not bear to watch anymore. Number 15 cried out loudly and number 1 who was behind seemed to feel it and also cried loudly. Not only that, Xia Jingxing suddenly felt a burst of warmth. Too great. PP. He flew into a rage and was about to teach the two brats a lesson when he suddenly heard Jing Zhe exclaiming, "Someone is laughing." Everyone was surprised. Jing Zhe was so excited that her voice was trembling as she pointed to the carriage. "I just heard it." Shen Miao was sleeping in the carriage. The surroundings suddenly became silent. The mountain breeze gently caressed everyone's face. It was warm and had a slight tickling feeling that even the sunlight could not help but laugh. In the silence, this time it was heard clearly. There was indeed someone laughing. It was a light and familiar laughter with some familiarity. After a long time, Xia Jingxing strode over. His hands were slightly trembling but at the end he finally made up his mind and opened the curtain of the carriage. The female's brows were gentle like a begonia that had just woken up and her voice was lazy but the faint shadow in her eyes betrayed her excited mood. She tilted her head and smiled gently, "Long time no see. Little Marquise Ye." Chapter 1138. The matter of Shen Miao waking up almost shocked the entire court. Those who slept day after day did not seem to have any signs of waking up. When no one had any hope, who knew that at this time when Xia Jingxing brought the two children out for a walk, Shen Miao woke up on her own. When the two of them returned to the palace, they almost shocked the people in the palace. Shen Xian and wife brought Shen Qiu out and when they saw Shen Miao standing in front of them, Luo Shuiyan immediately hugged Shen Miao and cried loudly. Shen Xian and Shen Qiu were stunned for a long time. Even though they did not reveal their emotions like Luo Shuiyan, their eyes could not help but turn red. Luo Tan clapped her hands to touch Shen Miao's hair and said, "Is this true? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Gao Yang, pinch me and see if it's real." Gao Yang wasn't there. He had gone to invite Gao Zhan. After Gao Zhan arrived, he took Shen Miao's pulse and after feeling her pulse, he clicked his tongue in wonder. The Empress' pulse is stable and there is no problem. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Not long after Xia Jingxing ascended the throne, everyone of the Shen family also arrived at the Great Liang and after knowing that Shen Miao had not woken up for a long time, they were unable to accept it. He insisted on bringing Shen Miao to search the world and also thought that it was impossible for Xia Jingxing to let an unconscious person be the Empress. Even if she was the Empress, in the future people's hearts would change easily and he might take in another female in the inner palace, thus Shen Xian must bring Shen Miao away. But Xia Jingxing was not willing no matter what and even knelt down to beg Shen Xian. At the end he even used the Mou army to threaten Shen Xian and almost fought with Shen Xian. It was still Luo Tan and Luo Shuiyan who came to persuade him. They mentioned the 1st and 15th day of the month. Shen Xian had no other way but he was afraid that someone would take advantage of Shen Miao not waking up and cause her to be wronged. He might as well hand the Shen family's and Luo family's army over to Luo Ling's side to manage, and his entire family would be stationed in the palace for a long time. He looked after Shen Miao to prevent any accidents. This was actually somewhat against etiquette, but Xia Jingxing was happy to see it happen, as it was good to have someone accompany Shen Miao to talk. And in this half a year, Shen Xian's family also saw with their own eyes that Xia Jingxing treated Shen Miao the same as before, and at the same time, they gradually felt at ease. Speaking of these, Shen Miao's heart was filled with mixed feelings. He never thought that he would be able to see his family the moment he woke up. Everyone was safe and sound, and everything was peaceful. This was already an unimaginable joy for her. Sister-in-law. Ji Yushu said, now that you are awake, those officials would not dare to talk nonsense all day. You don't know, but in this half a year, Long Ye's officials have been miserably dealt with by imperial cousin brother. Xia Jingxing looked at him slowly, you talk too much. Ji Yushu quickly kept quiet. Ever since Shen Miao fell into a deep sleep, other than the Shen family and the two treasures, Xia Jingxing did not have any patience for anyone, not to mention making jokes. His technique of setting people up was getting better and better. Naturally, they did not dare to provoke him. If you're done, I'll go back. Xia Jingxing coldly looked at the chattering of the crowd, it is late today. Do not disturb Zhen's Empress rest. He put a lot of emphasis on, my Empress. When Shen Qiu saw the situation, he wanted to roll up his sleeves and fight with Xia Jingxing. In this half a year, both of them would often fight behind. It was said to be exchanging pointers, but it was actually to vent each other's dissatisfaction. Shen Qiu was indignant in his heart. Shen Miao was unable to wake up because of Xia Jingxing. How good would it be if she did not follow Xia Jingxing in the beginning? Xia Jingxing was angry that Shen Qiu was meddling in other people's business. Why did his own daughter-in-law need an outsider to manage, not even his eldest brother? Now that Shen Miao returned and Xia Jingxing declared his sovereignty, Shen Qiu's heart was unhappy. But he heard Luo Shuiyan saying, that is also right. Jiao Jiao has just woken up and we have asked so many questions at once, it is inevitable that she will feel dizzy. It is better to let her rest for a while. Anyway, the days are long, so we can slowly talk. Chapter 1139. Shen Miao actually wanted to hear everyone talk about the things that happened in this half a year, but after thinking about it, it would be better to speak slowly since there was still time. Everyone discussed and dispersed, and Shen Miao returned to her bedroom. She first went to wash up, and Jing Zhe and the rest helped her bathe. As they were serving, they were wiping their tears and said with teary eyes, Fu. Your ladyship is finally awake. These servants were previously thinking that it would be great if there was a day that we could serve your ladyship to bathe once more. One did not know if the heavens would be willing to give this opportunity. One did not think that the heavens really have the virtue of cherishing life and was willing to give these servants another chance. Your ladyship, in the future these servants will serve you like this every day. Shen Miao did not know that after bathing, these maids would actually cry so much that she did not know whether to laugh or cry. She then used gentle and soft words to coax these maids. She knew in her heart that she had been asleep for half a year, and most of it was because these maids were scared. After wiping her body and drying her hair, Shen Miao put on her clothes and went out to let the wet nurse bring year 1 and 15 over. The two children were carried to the bed. In the past, they were often carried by Xia Jingxing to get close to Shen Miao, so even though Shen Miao had never woken up, the two children were not at all unfamiliar with her scent. They looked at her with a smile and curiously stretched out their soft little hands to grab her hair. Shen Miao's heart was about to be splashed by the two children. She stretched out her fingers to tease the children. Because they were twins and were equally lively, the wet nurse would not be able to differentiate them, so she gave them different clothes. Year 1 wore a blue gown and 15 wore a red gown. Year 1 hugged Shen Miao's fingers and started giggling. Shen Miao burst out laughing. Xia Jingxing just returned from outside and saw Shen Miao lying on the bed and laughing happily with the two little fellows. He walked over and said in disdain, after sleeping for half a year, have you become stupid? Laughing like a fool. I am looking at my son. Shen Miao rolled her eyes at him. What does it have to do with you? That is also my son. Xie Jingxing raised his brows. Without me, how would you give birth? Shen Miao was too lazy to bother with him and continued to play happily on the 1st and 15th days of the year. Xie Jingxing took off his outer robe but walked over and went around to her back. He reached out to hold her waist and pulled her into his embrace. Two silly little brats, there is nothing to see. Didn't you name them? Shen Miao complained. Did you randomly pick them? Who said that I randomly picked it? Xie Jingxing said, leave the name for you to pick when you wake up. Aren't you afraid that I'll never wake up? Xie Jingxing lazily said, then they will be called Xie Chu and Xie 15. Shen Miao, the two little guys on the bed didn't know if they understood Xie Jingxing's words, but they protested with a y sound. Shen Miao quickly reached out to coax him but was pulled back into his embrace by Xie Jingxing. He said, not seeing for half a year, you do not miss me and are so cold. Shen Miao paused for a moment and suddenly turned her head back. She broke free from Xie Jingxing's embrace and stood properly. She crossed her arms at her chest and stared at Xie Jingxing with a smile that was not a smile. Xie Jingxing suddenly felt that his back was somewhat numb. She said, little Xie Marquis, do you know what you have done? Xie Jingxing was inexplicable. Done what? Shen Miao smiled coldly. The flowers in the summer were good, the saucers were playing with bees and there was the fragrance of flowers everywhere. The streets were filled with people and horses galloped past. The hawkers' lively cries spread from the east to the west of the city and everywhere was jubilant. Chapter 1140. Shen Miao was wearing a yellow long-sleeved robe and there were hundreds of flowers embroidered on it. This robe was originally brightly colored and with the addition of the complicated embroidery, it looked jumbled. In addition to her head full of gold and silver ornaments and heavy makeup, she looked exceptionally stupid. The surrounding people would occasionally pass by and look at her with an expression of watching a joke. Shen Miao's gaze was somewhat at a loss. She was clearly in the Great Liang's imperial palace a moment ago and was on the verge of death due to giving birth, thinking that she had died. But in the next moment, she was on this bustling street. She was not unfamiliar with this street as this was Ming Qi's Ding capital. What was going on? Long Yi would definitely not be able to reach the Ding capital in a blink of an eye. Could it be that she was dreaming? But Shen Miao knew that it was not so. Jingzhe and Guyu followed behind and the two maids had a careful look. Shen Miao looked at the clothes on her body. She seemed to have returned to a long time ago, so long that she just started to be infatuated with Fu Xiu-yi. Could it be that his previous reincarnation was the real dream? Just a golden millet dream, which was real. Which was the dream? Shen Miao felt somewhat dizzy and reached out to hold her forehead. Guyu jumped in shock when she saw it. Is young lady uncomfortable anywhere? Shen Miao shook her head and just as she was about to speak, she saw a familiar person walking past the corner of the street. That person was wearing tattered clothes and was holding a horsetail whisk as he shook his head. One did not know what was in his mouth as he was mumbling. But Shen Miao's eyes brightened and did not bother to speak as she ran over to that person's side. Jingzhe and Guyu were unable to stop her and could only follow as they watched Shen Miao walk over to that person. Taoist priest Qi Yan. Shen Miao shouted. That strange Taoist priest turned his head over with a grin. It was indeed Taoist priest Qi Yan. When Taoist priest Qi Yan saw her, he had a very surprised look as he asked, Furen, why are you here? Shen Miao noticed that he said Furen and not young lady. Jingzhe angrily said, who are you calling Furen? Do not randomly shout. Our family's young lady is not married yet. But Shen Miao stopped Jingzhe's words and said to Taoist priest Qi Yan, Taoist priest, let's step aside to talk. Young lady. Jingzhe and Guyu anxiously stamped their feet. Shen Miao frowned. Listen to me. The look in her eyes became fierce. The two maids were stunned and didn't dare to answer. Shen Miao and Taoist priest Qi Yan walked to a dilapidated temple while Jingzhe and Guyu stood guard outside. Shen Miao looked at Taoist master Qi Yan and hesitated for a moment before asking, Taoist master, you know me, right? I've met Madam 3 times. The Taoist priest gestured 3 times. Once in his previous life, and twice in his reincarnation. That made it 3 times. Shen Miao hurriedly asked, Taoist priest, do you know what is going on? How did I get here? Without rhyme or reason, it was clear that her fate was nearing, so why would she return to Ming Qi's Ding capital and return to the beginning? Could it be that everything that happened with Xia Jingxing, even the matter of having a child in Great Liang, was all a pipe dream? If it's a dream, then isn't it a little too realistic? Madam's fate is very peculiar. The Taoist priest said, although there is a chance to start over, the fate has been disturbed, hence the calamity of life. Although he had resolved the previous tribulation, this was the final tribulation. It has nothing to do with others. You can only rely on yourself. Shen Miao frowned. What does Taoist priest's words mean? In the previous life, someone sought a chance for you to start over again. However, there are thousands of possibilities in the world. You and the person who came back to life know each other and fall in love, and there is also the possibility of knowing each other and falling in love with another person. Madam, you have 2 choices. Chapter 1141. Shen Miao clenched her fists. What choice? Currently Furen's that body is most likely in a deep sleep. You can choose to stay in this dream and look for another possibility. From now on, start everything over and choose another life. However, that body will sleep for a long time. What is the other possibility? Shen Miao asked. You go and find that man in your life and let this man in the dream believe you. Bring him back to the Great Liang, to the Great Liang Palace. The moment you step into the Great Liang Palace, that body will wake up. Shen Miao was stunned. But this is very difficult. The Taoist priest stroked his beard. Now that this man is a stranger to you, it is very difficult to convince him to go to the Great Liang with you. Shen Miao's head hurt. This is not possible. Xia Jingxing's character was sharp, suspicious, and would not easily believe others. Even after Shen Miao was reborn, she was in a deadlock with Xia Jingxing for a long time. Now, Shen Miao looked at her current outfit. It would be strange if Xia Jingxing could believe her. Furen, the words are as such. The strange Taoist priest said, naturally Furen can also stay in this dream. This dream is no different from reality. Furen can stay here to complete one's life and start anew. It is much simpler. If one were to choose the second path, it would be difficult. Shen Miao lowered her head and said after a long while, Taoist priests still have red ropes? How about gifting me too? Qi Yan Taoist priest was startled and sized Shen Miao up for a while like he did not recognize her before suddenly smiling. Does Furen still want to choose that path? Naturally I can live like that. It is also not bad to live here. Shen Miao gently smiled, but even if there are thousands of people in the world, I am not willing if there is one out of thousands of him who is sad because of me. He does not recognize me, so I will go and get to know him first. If the mountain does not come to me, I will come to the mountain. Taoist priest gift me a fate, and if the fate is gone, then I will go and find it myself. She said. Qi Yan Taoist priest said, infatuation is born from love. Since that is the case, this Taoist priest will gift you another fate. He took out 2 red ropes from his bosom. Furen, wish you success. Shen Miao bowed and turned to leave. Jingzhe and Guyu felt somewhat strange these days. Firstly, it was because Shen Miao had changed her previous temperament of wearing gold and silver and changed to wear more mature colors even though it looked good. Secondly, he was no longer as obedient to the second and third branches as before. Most of the time, he was even disdainful of them. Thirdly, in the past few days, he had secretly sent people to inquire about Prince Ding's news, but these days there was no mention of such a person, as if he did not remember such a person. Finally, he had been wandering the streets a lot lately. Shen Miao had a bigger headache than Jingzhe and Gu Yu. Xie Jingxing was someone who liked to wander around. Today he would go to the brothel and tomorrow he would go to the banquet, even though he knew that this was all his disguise. But Shen Miao's current mentality was different. Seeing Xie Jingxing attracting bees and butterflies, she could not wait to kick him twice. But because he wanted to inquire about Xie Jingxing's whereabouts, he could only secretly follow. In this half a month, there was actually no repetition every day, almost going around the entire Ding capital. On this evening, Shen Miao let Jingzhe and Gu Yu wait at the other side while she personally went to the entrance of the residence of the Marquis of Lineage to wait. She was dressed up as a male and had a clean and neat style. Moreover, the people of the Ding capital knew that she was an idiot who wore gold and silver. Naturally, one would not link the fifth young lady of the Shen family with her. From afar, one could see Xie Jingxing riding a horseback. Chapter 1142. Beside him were Gao Yang and Ji Yushu. He was indeed worthy to be an idle gentleman who visited brothels all day, as he could tell that she was a female dressed as a male with one glance. Ji Yushu even whistled and said with a smile, "Third older brother, another beauty is here." Shen Miao, Xie Jingxing got off the horse and swept a glance at her. He did not know what it meant and was about to walk towards the door. Shen Miao pulled him back. "Little Xie Marquis." Xie Jingxing stopped his footsteps. "Let's talk," she said. In the room, Xie Jingxing poured a cup of tea for her and lazily stared at her. "Shen Miao, fifth Shen young lady, after following me for half a month, could it be that you are really infatuated with me?" His words were frivolous, but his eyes were as sharp as usual. He had long investigated her identity clearly, but he had played it down and didn't say anything. Shen Miao had a headache. To let her in Great Liang wake up earlier, she must quickly bring this Xie Jingxing to Longyi so that she would wake up from the dream. But in this dream, Xie Jingxing was still so mischievous and suspicious. What should she say? Say that she was Xie Jingxing's wife, and also gave birth to 2 children for him? Would Xie Jingxing think that she had lost her mind? She said, "Little Xie Marquis, can you accompany me to Great Liang?" Before her voice landed, a strong wind came, and before Shen Miao could react, her throat was grabbed by someone. His voice was cold and there was a hidden killing intent. "What do you know?" Shen Miao almost could not breathe. She knew that it was like this. With Xie Jingxing's overbearing temperament, no matter what she said, he would not listen. Even if she wanted to explain, it was not possible. Seeing that she was gasping for breath and seemed to have no martial arts, Xie Jingxing then slightly loosened his grip. Shen Miao was angry and anxious as she said angrily, "Scoundrel." Xie Jingxing's gaze turned cold. "You have big guts." "Scoundrel." "Lecher." "Shameless." "Burning the bridge after crossing the river." "Cruel and unscrupulous." She did not stop scolding. Xie Jingxing was stunned and unconsciously let go of his hands. After a moment he laughed, "Fifth Shen young lady, I do not seem to have offended you." Shen Miao covered her neck and said, "Bring me to Great Liang." Xie Jingxing was about to flare up again when he heard Shen Miao saying, "Bring me to Great Liang and I will tell you what I know." Xie Jingxing crossed his arms and looked at her coldly before smiling. "Apologies, I am not interested in what you know." He sat down in front of the table and leisurely drank his tea. "But today I will spare your life. If I discover that you have other plans. Fifth Shen young lady also know that I am not a good person." Shen Miao was slightly startled. "I'm not a good person." This was what Xie Jingxing had told her before. Fifth Shin young lady is still not leaving. You want to spend the night in my marquee fu? He said with a smile that was not a smile. I have no problem. Shin Miao said, shameless, and stormed off. After Shin Miao left, Xie Jingxing's face turned cold as he said, Tai Yi. A black-clothed man appeared in the room. Check it out. The Shin family, Shin Miao, he said. The man in black accepted the order and left. It was very difficult for Shin Miao to chase after Xie Jingxing. No matter if it was the Xie Jingxing in reality or the Xie Jingxing in the dream, he was all the same and often made Shin Miao clench her teeth in anger. Especially in the dream. Now in this dream, Shin Miao was just a stranger to Xie Jingxing. Before that, she was notorious, stupid and even liked Fu Xiu Yi. If now her image was changed, one would feel that she was not as described by outsiders and would only think that she was scheming and might even know his real identity and was plotting something. Chapter 1143. Xie Jingxing was wary of her and it was not easy to get close to her. Shin Miao could only go out every day to secretly follow him and find ways to speak 1 or 2 sentences to him. Xie Jingxing also knew that she was following but pretended not to know. It was Gao Yang and Ji Yu Shu who knew about this matter would tease her with a few meaningful words. The 3rd day of the 7th month was Xie Jingxing's birthday. Shin Miao naturally knew that the current little marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and did not have this birthday. But the birthday of the great Liang's Prince Rui was this. She felt that previously in the real world, on Xie Jingxing's birthday, she was angry because of Mei Furen and Xie Jingxing. Afterwards she was not angry but because of the assassin, she made Xie Jingxing fearful. Thinking that since it was so, why not take advantage of her dreams and give Xie Jingxing a birthday in her dreams? She left early and went to Misty Rain Pavilion to book a banquet table. She had a lot of gold and silver jewelry but they were all pawned. A banquet table in Misty Rain Pavilion was worth more than 1,000 gold. Jingzhe and Guyu were so anxious that their eyes almost turned red but Shin Miao did not listen. It was only a dream. In reality, gold and silver were mere worldly possessions, not to mention in a dream. She was thinking that in the evening, she would drag Xie Jingxing over. Perhaps they could have a good talk at the banquet table and discuss about the great Liang's matters. The entanglement was too complicated and even if she explained it, Xie Jingxing would not understand. Perhaps he would think that she was talking nonsense so she had to ponder over it properly. She followed Xie Jingxing to 1,000 Gold Pavilion. Xie Jingxing was drinking with a few noble juniors in the Ding capital but saw Qin Qing. The daughter of the left imperial censor, Qin Qing, had done the painting together with Shin Miao during the academy examinations. Qin Qing was born beautiful and was wearing a green cotton embroidered robe with wide sleeves. There was a yellow belt on her waist which made her slender waist less than a grasp and the fluttering of her clothes made her look like a fairy. Qin Qing had always been arrogant because of her beauty and ordinary people would not look at her but at the moment she was sitting with her eldest brother, her eyes unconsciously drifted towards Xie Jingxing. Where was the usual arrogance, it was filled with tenderness and sweetness. Only a fool would not be able to see that Qin Qing was interested in Xie Jingxing. Brother Qin also had the intention to pull the strings, so he deliberately moved aside to let Qin Qing and Xie Jingxing sit together. Shin Miao looked from the other side and did not know what Qin Qing and Xie Jingxing were talking about. Xie Jingxing smiled flirtatiously and Qin Qing shyly nodded her head. Looking from afar, they were really a pair of lovers. Shin Miao's eyes were somewhat sour. She knew that this was a dream and also knew that Xie Jingxing did not know her now and did not like her. He could play with other people and it was not something she could control. But she was sad, thinking that in the real world of the Great Liang, would Xie Jingxing be accompanied by beauties in the future, with fragrant clothes and silhouettes on his temples. Among the thousands of possibilities, he could not choose himself every single time. She closed her eyes, feeling that the scene of people toasting each other was very irritating. She couldn't bear to watch it anymore, so she stood up and left the table. Walking and walking, he eventually arrived at the Misty Rain Pavilion. The banquet in the Misty Rain Pavilion was the best banquet, and the location was also good as it was at the highest level. Looking from the window, one could see the fireworks and the moon. Shin Miao went in alone. In the huge banquet, she was the only one sitting empty. The exquisite dishes filled the table and looked gorgeous, but it could not conceal the loneliness. She poured a cup of wine for herself. The wine was good wine. It was a thick osmanthus wine, sweet and had a lingering aftertaste. She drank slowly, and every time she drank a cup, she would look at the moon. The moon in the dream was really beautiful, but in the real world, who was Xie Jingxing accompanying to look at the moon? Chapter 1144. She drank so much that her head was dizzy. She drank so much that she did not even hear the footsteps behind her. She heard a mocking voice coming from behind her. Wow, the Shin family is indeed a big family. Fifth Shin young lady is eating alone and still has to arrange such a banquet in Misty Rain Pavilion. Shin Miao turned back to look, and Xie Jingxing had a smile on his lips as he walked in unhurriedly. She frowned. Xie Jingxing's eyes swept across the empty wine pots on the table. One pot after another, all over the place, and teased, Fifth Shin young lady's mood is not good after drinking so much? Shin Miao stared straight at him. Xie Jingxing leaned over slightly, and his line of sight was level with Shin Miao. When he saw her slightly red eyes, he was slightly startled before saying, "Could it be because of me?" Shin Miao still did not speak. Xie Jingxing pondered, because of Qin Qing. Before he finished speaking, Shin Miao suddenly threw herself into his embrace. Her hands tightly hugged Xie Jingxing's waist, and her face was buried in his chest. It was clearly a familiar body, so why did he use such a strange tone to talk to her? She sobbed and scolded, "Shameless. Do you want to separate from me? In the beginning when he married me, he clearly said that he would not have another woman in the future and that he would only be a couple for a lifetime. Xie Jingxing is a liar. You tricked me into entering the family, and now you're attracting bees and butterflies. My big brother and father will definitely beat you up. Bastard, bastard, bastard." Xie Jingxing was frightened and said, "When did I say that?" But Shin Miao hugged him and cried so sadly that Xie Jingxing swallowed the rest of his words. The girl in his arms was crying and her body was twitching. It could be seen that she was really angry. Her hands were tightly wrapped around his waist like a child, unwilling to let go even if she died. Xie Jingxing hesitated for a moment before he stretched out his hand, wanting to pat the girl's shoulder lightly. She was the fifth miss of the Shin family. Everyone knew that she was a stupid idiot. The Shin family had nothing to do with her and she did not care about them. Who knew that one day he was targeted by Shin Miao and she always had a good relationship with him? Xie Jingxing was inexplicable and became even more suspicious because Shin Miao seemed to know the secret of his great Liang. However, he couldn't seem to be cruel to her no matter what. She heard Tiei say that she was drunk in the Misty Rain Pavilion, yet she still followed him. Xie Jingxing frowned as he stared at the person in his embrace. The delicate body in his embrace was warm and it seemed that even his heart was warmed up a little. But he felt a little strange, as if this posture was somewhat familiar, as if he had done this before. Where did he do it? In a dream? He hesitated and said uncertainly, "Shin Miao, have I hugged you like this before?" The sobbing in his arms stopped abruptly. Shin Miao raised her head from his embrace and stared at him. Under the moonlight, her eyes were red and swollen, but her eyes were bright. It was as if a new hope had appeared in the midst of despair. It was very moving. She tiptoed and pulled Xie Jingxing's collar, pulling him closer and kissing him fiercely. "You kissed me like that," she said. What happened afterwards was that Shen Miao pestered Xie Jingxing till he had no choice and finally agreed to bring her to the Great Liang. Perhaps in that dream, when Xie Jingxing and Shen Miao woke up, they were gone and most likely the commoners of Mingqi thought that they had eloped. But so what, when they reached the imperial palace of the Great Liang, they would wake up from the dream. In that journey of nearly half a year, Shen Miao also told her own matters to Xie Jingxing in the dream. She did not know if Xie Jingxing would believe it or not. After Xie Jingxing heard it, he did not say anything, but one night, he said it to Shen Miao. He said, "What that Taoist priest said is wrong." Shen Miao was puzzled. What? Among thousands of possibilities, I will only choose you. His lips hooked up into a smile and tied the red string on Shen Miao's hand to himself. Hurry on with the journey. Do not let me in reality wait for too long. Shen Jiaojiao. Xie Jingxing was dumbstruck as he listened. Shen Miao cast a sidelong glance at him. In that dream, you attracted bees and butterflies and went to brothels every day and bullied me. You did not believe anything that I said to you and suspected me and pinched my neck. Xie Jingxing, do you know what you have done? Her accusatory tone made Xie Jingxing speechless. After a long while he said, that is the me in the dream and not me. The one in the dream is also you. Shen Miao said angrily. Xie Jingxing quickly hugged her and stroked her hair. The me in the dream also believed you at the end and brought you back to the Great Liang. It can be seen that I only have you in my heart. He touched his chin and said unhappily, but that brat is really lucky that you actually took the initiative to kiss him. Shen Miao, only Xie Jingxing could eat one's own vinegar under the heavens. Since that is the case, I must apologize to Furen. Xie Jingxing said seriously and suddenly carried Shen Miao. Deserting Furen deserves to die. Today Furen can do whatever you want. Hey, it is the 1st and 15th day of the new year, let the wet nurse watch. Xie Jingxing carried her and turned to walk out, but his lips could not help but rise. Even though the person in the dream was very hateful, there was one thing that was not wrong. Shen Miao looked at him. What is it? Among thousands of possibilities, I will only choose you and only you. He said. Chapter 1145. Luo Tan was not in a good mood recently. Everyone in the Luo family had moved to Longyi and it could be considered that they had settled down here. After Shen Miao became the Empress, she was not as idle as before. She had to take care of the 1st and 15th days of the month and also manage the inner palace properly, even though it was very puzzling in Luo Tan's eyes. After all, there was only Shen Miao alone in the inner palace of the Great Liang, so what was there to manage? But Shen Miao was indeed busy and Luo Tan felt somewhat bored. But she had always had a restless temperament and simply went out to play all day, to find entertainment for herself. This time the Luo family's second household couple were somewhat dissatisfied. Madame Ma said all day, you are not young anymore and Ren Jiao's son is already over 1 year old. Others do not care about you being an old young lady, but you are still so rash all day long. How can that be? Luo Tan was extremely vexed. She felt that it was good to be alone. She could eat, drink and play by herself, but after getting married, it would be troublesome as she had to manage this and that and also manage her husband's heart. If her husband was a good one and did not bring in a mess of females into the inner courtyard, then she would want to spread the branches and leaves earlier. After giving birth, she would have to personally take care of the children. A female's youth was so short that how could it be wasted on such trivial matters? It would be better to take advantage of one's good years to go out and visit famous mountains and great rivers. That would be meaningful. In fact, the Luo family was not an old-fashioned family and would not worry about marrying off their daughter at such a young age. It was just that parents would always hope that their child would have a good home to return to as soon as possible, and Luo Tan was always carefree. Living till this age, it seemed that she had never liked anyone before. If one were to talk about liking, it would be casually seen on the streets. This kind of liking was no different from liking flowers and plants. One did not know how long it would take for Luo Tan to be enlightened on matters of love. Madame Ma asked, Tanner, tell mother honestly. Do you really not have a man that you like? Luo Tan was impatient from being questioned and said, Mother, where did I find a man that I like? Now even Qian'er has a young lady that he likes and Qian'er is younger than you. When Madame Ma heard this, she became depressed and used Luo Qian as an example. There are so many good men in this world, why can't I see any that I like? Luo Tan curled her lips. There are many of them, but I haven't seen many. This cannot go on, Madame Ma slapped the table, I cannot let you continue to fool around like this. Now that Jiao Jiao is the Empress, she must know a few young talents in this world. I have to ask her to help me look for one. You go and take a good look for me. Luo Tan looked at her incredulously, Mother, are you serious? It's not like I can't get married. It is not that you cannot get married. You simply do not understand. Madame Ma said, you must go. If you do not go, how can I let you go out? Finishing, she did not wait for Luo Tan to answer and got up to leave. Madame Ma let Luo Shuayan accompany her to the palace to talk about this matter with Shen Miao. Even though Shen Miao was now an empress, she did not change her temperament and was as gentle as before in front of relatives. The Luo family and the Shen family still got along with her like before and there was no change. When Madame Ma mentioned Luo Tan, she felt a headache and asked Shen Miao, Jiao Jiao, you usually come in contact with many noble people. Can you help Tanner to look for a few? One does not need the family background, the most important thing is the character and one must have a good character. Tanner is pure and does not know the twists and turns of the residence. It is best that the family is clean and simple, and do not have any messy relatives. It is best to have a handsome appearance. Madame Ma was somewhat blushing, Tanner likes good-looking things. If one is good-looking, most likely she would like it. Chapter 1146. Shen Miao was astonished and looked at Luo Shuayan. Luo Shuayan also said, yes. Jiao Jiao, it is better for you to take a look at Tanner. Naturally there is no problem but... Shen Miao asked hesitantly, does Biao older sister really have no one in her heart? With her temperament, it is impossible to wait for her to take the initiative to open her apertures. Madame Ma waved her hands and had an appearance of not wanting to mention it again. If Tanner is half of Jiao Jiao's knowledge, I would not need to be so worried. Since they were all sisters, Shen Miao was able to discern heroes and at a young age, she was able to marry Xia Jingxing, a rare peerless male in the world, which became a much-told story. After marriage, Xia Jingxing was also tightly controlled and other than the Empress, there were no other women in the inner palace of a monarch. How many women in the world were envious but Shen Miao could not. Moreover Xia Jingxing's conditions were so good. Looking at Luo Tan, after living for so many years, not to mention taking down a peerless male, she did not even have any signs of an ordinary male. Originally Madame Ma and Luo Yantai were thinking that when their daughter grew up, there would be so many marriage proposals that the doorsill would be broken. If one family had a daughter, then hundreds of families would seek for it and how lively it would be. At the end it was so quiet that not even a mosquito could be seen. Needless to say how sullen it was. Did Biao older sister Tan herself agree to take a look? Shen Miao asked. She dare not agree. Madame Ma said again, Jiao Jiao, you have a good relationship with her so will trouble you to persuade her when you are free. What is the matter with a young lady visiting the brothel all day long? She is very clear about the gambling houses in Longyi. It is really a misfortune for the family. Luo Tan had such a lively temperament and disregarded the rules and etiquette. She lived freely but it was easy to be criticized. Shen Miao replied straightforwardly, all right. Then I will start to help Biao older sister to take note. It is just that Biao older sister must like it or not. Then many thanks Jiao Jiao. Madame Ma was overjoyed. At night, Shen Miao held a long scroll in her hands and looked through it one by one until late at night and still did not sleep. When Xie Jingxing returned to the bedroom after dealing with the reports, he saw that she was still waiting to read and asked, "Did you sleep first? There are some things that have not been read." Shen Miao did not even lift her head as her eyes continued to be glued to the scroll. Xie Jingxing walked over to take a look and saw that on the scroll, there was a small portrait of a man on every page. Beside the portrait was the man's name, family background, official position, and even hobbies and specialties. Xie Jingxing closed the scroll and asked, "What are you looking at this for? Get up and move." Shen Miao took the scroll back from his hands. "Yunmu, let me find some reliable people for Tan Biao older sister. Do not interrupt." "Luo Tan." Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. "She is going to marry? Aunt worries a lot. It's just a matter of convenience." Shen Miao suddenly thought of something and looked at Xie Jingxing. "Speaking of which, what is Gao Yang's intention?" "What do you mean?" Xie Jingxing was confused. "That's right, cousin Tan." Shen Miao looked at him. "I see that he likes Tan Biao older sister, but it does not seem to explain anything. If one were to wait for Tan Biao older sister to understand, one fear that it would not happen in this lifetime. Tan Biao older sister does not understand. Gao Yang is an astute person. What is the meaning of him dragging it like this?" Xie Jingxing frowned and pondered. "Does Gao Yang like Luo Tan?" Shen Miao used her elbow to poke him. "Are you blind? How would I know what Gao Yang is thinking?" Xie Jingxing felt wronged. He grasped his own matters clearly and logically but was extremely slow when it came to his good friend's marriage. Shen Miao could see that Xie Jingxing did not know how to read the situation, so she was too lazy to ask him. Chapter 1147. But Xie Jingxing opened his mouth at this time and said, "Gao Yang is an intelligent person, but intelligence is easily misled by intelligence." Shen Miao immediately understood his meaning. She turned her head back and looked at Xie Jingxing. "You are saying that Gao Yang knew his own thoughts and deliberately did not say it, waiting for Biao older sister to speak? Not everyone is like your husband, who is able to bend and stretch as needed." Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up. "Ha!" Shen Miao glanced at him. "Why do you not say that not everyone is as shameless as you?" Xie Jingxing's face turned green and heard Shen Miao speaking again. "But you are right. Cleverness can be misled by cleverness." With Gao Yang's temperament of grasping everything in the palm of his hands, one fear that he is wrong to wait for Biao older sister to understand. Xie Jingxing said thoughtfully, "What do you want to do?" Shen Miao stared at him. "Of course, to help Biao older sister." She then fiercely leaned towards Xie Jingxing and threatened, "Do not tell Gao Yang." Gao Yang was Xie Jingxing's people, so Xie Jingxing would occasionally give a few words of advice. Xie Jingxing grabbed her hands and smiled ambiguously. "That would depend on Furin's performance tonight." Shen Miao did what she said and indeed found a booklet on the second day. There were 3 names on it and Luo Shuiyan sent it to the Luo residence. Madame Ma was so grateful that she wanted to personally come to the palace to thank Shen Miao, but was comforted by Luo Shuiyan. "One do not know if Tanner would like it or not. Wait till it is done before saying." Madame Ma could trust the people that Shen Miao picked. This time she also let Luo Sui and Luo Yen Tai take a look, and both of them nodded their heads repeatedly. Luo Yen Tai had entered the Great Liang's official position and had some understanding of the various officials. The 3 people that Shen Miao picked were all young talents that were ranked in the top. Moreover, their family background was good and their background was clean. The most important thing was that their character was absolutely upright. Luo Tan thought that Madame Ma was only saying it. Even if Madame Ma had such intentions, Shen Miao would definitely be on her side and would definitely not let her take a look at these people. She did not expect that Shin Miao not only followed Madame Ma to mess around, but also sent the booklet. Luo Tan was so angry that she sat in the room and lamented repeatedly in front of the mirror that youngest Biao did not love her. Although she was unwilling, Luo Tan still wanted to meet these three young masters. Because Luo Lien Tai cut off Luo Tan's money and didn't allow Luo Tan to go out, if she didn't listen, who knew how long she would be locked up? Madame Ma cried again in front of Luo Tan. Luo Tan was a person who could be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force. She felt that it was unfilial of her to make things difficult for Madame Ma, so she agreed to see the three people. The first one was the son of the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet. He was well-read and gentle, but when he spoke, it made Luo Tan want to doze off. She dozed off the whole afternoon. Later, she would tell Madame Ma that if she lived with this person, thinking about how boring it would be, she would definitely have an affair. Madame Ma was so frightened that she immediately arranged for the second young master. The second young master was a former deputy general. He was still young, but after a few more years, he would definitely have a better future. It was just that this young deputy general was very mature. Even though he was handsome, it made one feel fear. Luo Tan said that if she were to marry this person, she would be worried that she would be hacked to death by the person sleeping next to her at night as his killing intent was too strong. Madame Ma thought about it. Indeed, females were all delicate. Even though Luo Tan was usually carefree, but if she was with a military general, if there was any friction, that person's temper would be hard and would not be willing to give in, and if they quarrel, wouldn't there be chaos? She then rejected the second person in her heart. On the third day, the last person was finally welcomed. This was the middle minister's family's young master He. Young master He was 20 this year and was still considered young. Even though his family was a civil official, he also practiced martial arts. He could be considered a talent with both civil and military skills. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.